I raked in 2 billion with just one secret, and then dropped 100 million to book 10,000 banquet feasts. Everyone thought I was just a show-off nouveau riche. My fiancé even called me insane. But only I knew that in just half a month, Island Nation would discharge nuclear wastewater and Nation M's virus lab would leak. Soon after, the global cataclysm would erupt.
80% of the world's population turned into zombies, and plants and animals began to mutate.
From then on, humanity became nothing but prey. Survivors could only cling to life by hiding inside safe houses. Only the few who underwent mutations and awakened abilities could fight back. Some touched ice and became ice queens, freezing everything in their path. Others touched steel to awaken metal control abilities and build Doomsday stronghold. Some awakened the physical enhancement abilities, allowing them to move freely through million-song zombie tides. As for me, I unexpectedly awakened the space ability, which allowed me to survive the apocalypse as well. Because once the end of the world came, food became the ultimate scarcity. Without food, survival is impossible. But I had hoarded a mountain of supplies using my space ability, and even rescued a large number of survivors. However, the first rule of the apocalypse: kill the Holy Mother's fur. That saying was spot on. My kindness was never rewarded. They tied me up while I was sleeping, all because I had awakened the undying bloodline. Not only could it heal wounds from zombie bites, but it also offered ordinary people a chance to awaken their own powers. In this hellscape, my body was no different from a ginseng fruit of immortality. Man or monster, everyone wanted a bite. Even my beloved fiancée cuss-scolded me, joining forces with her lover to drain the very last drop of blood from my body. I only ever told the secret of my blood to my fiancée, and I had even willingly let her drink it twice. During these years of the apocalypse, I devoted myself to caring for her entire family, but this was how she repaid me. I'm done being a simp, and I will never help anyone like some holy mother again. As if the heavens heard my prayers, I have actually been reborn. It's even 15 days before the apocalypse breaks out, and my space ability from my past life actually remained. However, the undying Bloodline is gone. But with just my space ability, I can still thrive in the post-apocalyptic world. You see, in the end times, a box of instant noodles can make a famous actress bow her head and beg you. If I hoard tens of thousands of tons of supplies, I can live a life of luxury in the apocalypse. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was a message from my girlfriend. Dear, my brother is coming over with his girlfriend. You need to make proper arrangements. It has to be a 5-star hotel at least. I've already bragged to them that you're the CEO of a multinational corporation. By the way, my brother has his eye on a house worth over 300,000 yuan. Don't make me lose face. Listening to the familiar voice of my fiancée, Xi Zhenxiang, veins bulged on my forehead and my eyes turned bloodshot. I wanted to kill this shameless bitch right then and there. But with 15 days left until the end, the priority is stockpiling supplies. It's not worth getting arrested over her. I'll let them live for another 2 weeks. Once the apocalypse hits and order collapses, I'll have plenty of chances to torment them. So I gritted my teeth and replied with one word. Okay. The next day inside the Zhujianghu specialty restaurant, the owner and the waiter looked at me mockingly. It wasn't even 10 a.m., but I was devouring food like a starving ghost. But I didn't care about their strange looks at all. During my 3 years in the apocalypse, I never had a single hot meal. So now that I'm reborn, I'm going to feast. More importantly, I'm here to settle some business. The restaurant's owner is Zhen Wuqi, and he lives in my neighborhood. In my past life, shortly after the apocalypse began, Zhen Wuqi used his mother's position as the neighborhood committee director to force everyone to surrender their food for him to distribute, but he kept most of it for himself. I was one of his victims. When his schemes were exposed, everyone turned their backs on him, but he conspired with the guards to rob people door to door.
Taking everything from food to beautiful women?
In this life, I'm making that mother and son my first targets. Once I've bought up all their stock, they'll have nothing left to eat. They'll starve to death like the rest. When it was time to pay, I made my move and asked, I'm looking to book 1,000 banquets. Can you handle an order that size? Zhen Wuqi's eyes lit up at the prospect. He nodded eagerly, and I paid a 200,000 yuan deposit on the spot. We agreed that the balance would be paid in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, the apocalypse will strike and society will collapse. In that chaos, who's going to care about the debt? As for Zhen Wuqi, seeing the payment term was only 2 weeks, he agreed immediately. Since we live in the same complex, he wasn't worried about me disappearing. We signed a contract quickly, but with that done, I didn't head home. Instead, I rushed straight to Huaxin Tower. My current funds are nowhere near enough to stockpile the resources I need. I need to secure a massive amount of capital. At that moment, a certain person came to mind. The loyal comrade who fought by my side in the previous life.
And the woman who would become the feared Ice Queen.
In my past life, if she hadn't saved me, I would have died in the jaws of those mutant beasts. Right now, she is the CEO of the Tianlong Group in Pujiang City. As soon as I entered the lobby, I called out Shen Bingqian's name and walked straight toward a golden elevator. The security guards instinctively moved to intercept me, even reaching for the guns at their waist. However, they didn't end up chasing after me, because this golden elevator is reserved for the CEO. No one can get in. In the entire company, no more than 3 people know it. But I walked up and skillfully entered the code. In the next moment, the elevator doors actually opened. I stepped inside under the security guard's stunned gazes, while at that moment, Shen Bingqian was also stunned in her office, staring coldly at me through the elevator's surveillance feed. Huaxin is a massive corporation with military ties. Since its founding, no one has ever dared to trespass. Yet today, this strange young man just walked in, and he even knows the password. She was filled with both anger and confusion. The CEO's office is the heart of the company, where all of their top-tier military technology is stored. If something goes wrong here, the consequences will be catastrophic. Shen Bingqian immediately ordered all personnel downstairs to be on standby. She glanced at the gun in her right drawer. She was a veteran herself, herself, confident she could handle this uninvited guest. By then, I had already stepped out of the elevator and into the office. To Shen Bingqian's further surprise, I acted as if I knew the place perfectly. Sitting down directly in the chair opposite her, Shen Bingqian shot me a cold look. Who are you? Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that I have a business proposal. You'll be interested. Because this deal can save Huaxing Group. Shen Bingqian scoffed. You saving Huaxing? Peaks will fly before that happened. She was a bit tense just now, but now she's convinced I'm just a reckless fool. Her grandfather was high-ranking military before retiring. Huaxing is a top-tier domestic military R&D group with revenues growing every year and high profit margins. There's not a single sign of crisis. Yet this madman actually claims he can save Huaxing. Isn't this just blind guesswork and total nonsense? I didn't flinch. You have a Type 92 pistol in your right drawer. It can penetrate 1.3 mm of steel plate within 50 meters, but it only has 3 bullets left inside. Seeing Shen Bingqian's shocked expression, I gave a slight smile. In my previous life, when the apocalypse first began, Huaxing Group relied on its advanced security system to hold off the zombie onslaught, becoming the largest survivor base in Fujian. I lived here for a while, and I once fought side by side with this aloof CEO. After facing death together dozens of times, we shared a bond of life and death. Because of that, I'm very familiar with this building, and I know everything about Shen Bingqian. A look of gravity crossed Shen Bingqian's face, as she demanded to know how I knew. Only those closest to her knew these things. I ignored her and continued speaking. I also know your grandfather named the company Huaxing, meaning revitalized China. Besides having the world's most advanced AI solo combat robots, Huaxing also develops state-of-the-art security systems. More importantly, key facilities nationwide use Huaxing's systems, including the very seat of power here in the Magic City. If these core technologies fall into enemy hands, it would be an utter catastrophe for both Huaxing and the nation. Just a few days ago, someone broke into this very office and copied all of the company's technical and security data. If I'm not mistaken, you still haven't identified the mastermind behind the breach. The next moment, Shen Bingqian snatched a pistol from her drawer and aimed it right at me. This isn't just a corporate secret, it's a matter of top-tier national security. If this data is leaked, the entire power structure of Magic City will face a dire threat. Despite her threat, I continued with cold composure. Actually, that's the least of your worries. The real crisis is what comes next. Huaxing Group is about to be cannibalized by its competitors. For 2 billion, I'll not only expose the mastermind, but also save Huaxing from ruin. Shen Bingqian didn't lower her weapon. Her gaze fixed intensely on me. Why should I believe you? In fact, she had already suspected it was an inside job, but she was still in the dark regarding the culprit's identity. Seeing her lingering doubt, I made an offer. I'll catch the traitor and secure the company first. If you think it's worth it, pay the 2 billion. If not, consider it a free favor. Shen Bingqian let out a breath and slowly lowered the gun. Alright then. Who's the mole? And what are these crises you mentioned? The files were copied right here in this office, and the only access point is through this elevator. So the perpetrator must be someone who knows the access code. Aside from you and Secretary Su, only Chen Hao, the office director, has the code. In other words, the one who copied the data wasn't actually Chen Hao. It could be Secretary Shu, or perhaps the two of them worked together. I began to analyze the case. Hearing my words, Shen Bingqian was utterly shocked. How could I know the company so well? Even the codes for the private elevator. And exactly who had access, I knew it all. But if it were really that simple, we would have solved it long ago. Before the data was stolen, neither Director Chen nor I had even entered the building. Secretary Shu sneered disdainfully. That's right. I've checked the elevator surveillance. They've been cleared of suspicion. Shen Bingqian felt a flicker of disappointment in me at that moment. She thought I'd have a surprise for her, but I remained perfectly calm. But what if Director Chen and Secretary Shu teamed up to doctor the surveillance footage? AI deepfake technology is so advanced nowadays. Swapping a face in the footage wouldn't be hard at all, would it? My words jolted Shen Bingqian. At that moment, a trace of panic appeared in Secretary Shu's eyes, but she still retorted. Huaxing security is world-class. No hacker could ever break in. And even if someone did, the security system would have a record of it. But before and after the data was stolen, the company's network didn't suffer a single cyber attack. I looked at Secretary Shu with a knowing smirk. What if the hacker is one of your own internal technicians? You're getting awfully nervous. Guilty conscience, perhaps. The next second, Secretary Shu suddenly lunged toward the desk, reaching for the pistol lying there. Her explosive speed was a far cry from her previously fragile demeanor. But the moment she grabbed the gun, I lashed out with a kick and sent the pistol flying. By then, Shen Bingqian had also snapped back to her senses. She snatched up the gun and aimed it right at Secretary Shu. It really was you. By now, Secretary Shu was already on her knees, trembling with fear. I had no choice, President Shen. If I didn't do as they said, they would have killed my entire family. But before she could finish, Shen Bingqian silenced her with a single shot. No wonder she becomes the dreaded Ice Queen in the apocalypse. Clearly, this wasn't her first time taking a life. But I was a bit puzzled. Why didn't she keep her alive to extract more information? Shen Bingqian just shook her head. Betrayal was the one thing she loathed most. So, she executed Secretary Shu without hesitation. By now, Shen Bingqian fully believed my word. She asked me directly, who is the other mole? Chen Hao, the director of the president's office. He was bought off by Green Mountain Capital from the US long ago. The project between Huaxing Group and Green Mountain Capital is a total scam. To develop it, Huaxing would need to take out a $200 billion loan. Green Mountain plans to steal the technology first, then pull their funding once the project starts, causing Huaxing's capital chain to collapse. With the technology lost, Green Mountain will swallow Huaxing at a rock-bottom price. I laid out everything I knew from my previous life, but Shen Bingqian still had her doubts. What evidence do you have to prove all this is true? Investigate Secretary Xu and Chen Hao. See if they've received any massive unexplained transfers lately. And let me tell you another secret. The technical data they copied is still inside this office. I spoke with absolute confidence. Hearing this, Shen Bingqian looked stunned. But after a moment, it finally clicked for her. The company's security is airtight. It's nearly impossible to smuggle data out. So it makes perfect sense that the data is still here. She immediately ordered an investigation into the assets of Secretary Xu and Chen Hao, and the results came in quickly, confirming everything I had said. By now, Shen Bingqian's face had turned livid. She immediately ordered security to arrest Chen Hao and lock down the entire building. No one was allowed to enter or leave. I watched with a smile as Shen Bingqian did all this. I was right, wasn't I? Is this gift worth 2 billion? Shen Bingqian nodded slightly and prepared to transfer the funds to me. But I had a new request. You only need to transfer 500 million to me for the remaining 1.5 billion. Just to buy the supermarket across the street and give it to me. Shen Bingqian looked up at me. That supermarket isn't expensive. I'll give it to you as a gift. After all, you just saved Huaxing. However, I interrupted her before she could finish. I also want a 4-meter high wall built around the perimeter, followed by a full Huaxing security system. Also prepare a batch of supplies for me. They must be ready within 10 days. I handed over the list I had prepared. A flicker of surprise crossed Shen Bingqian's face. This kid went to such lengths to get in, yet all he wanted was 500 million and a supermarket. However, once she finished reading my list, her expression quickly turned grim. The foundation must be 1 meter deep, reinforced with 100 mm thick steel plating, 100 high-power generators, 100 high-power solar power systems, 100 tons of diesel, 1,000 sets of beds, and even 5-wheeled armored vehicles, 10 sets. Shen Bingqian spoke to me sternly, but I didn't back down. You only need to leave these weapons and equipment at the supermarket for 15 days. After that, you can take them all back. You can monitor everything for those 15 days. I won't touch them even once. Seeing my look of absolute certainty, Shen Bingqian hesitated for a moment. She finally agreed. After all, the entire supermarket was under their surveillance. A few days shouldn't be an issue. With my goal achieved for the day, I provided a bank account number and left. After I left, Shen Bingqian immediately ordered an investigation into me. After all, to know so much, my identity couldn't be simple. However, she was stunned when she saw my profile. No degree, no money, no powerful background, and certainly no special training. How could such an ordinary man know Huaxing's secrets? But little did she know that after receiving 500 million yuan, I immediately showed up at the city's largest slaughterhouse, ordering 1,000 head of cattle in the name of Huaxing Group, and paying half the deposit upfront. Seeing the ecstatic owner, I told him delivery must be within 13 days, then drove off. I then repeated the process, sweeping through every slaughterhouse in the city. By the time I finished and got home, it was already 11 p.m. I had just finished my shower when I unexpectedly got a call from Xi Zhenxiang's best friend, Chen Yu. It turns out she worked at the bank. After I deposited the 500 million today, their branch manager, knowing her connection to me, assigned her as my exclusive account manager. I had no interest in her flattery and flirtation over the phone, and hung up after a few dismissive words. Birds of a feather flock together. As Xi Zhenxiang's best friend, Chen Yu was no saint. She had also betrayed me in my past life. She once took advantage of my absence to steal all our remaining food. It was after that incident that Xi Zhenxiang and her lover conspired to kill me. A ringtone suddenly snapped me out of my thoughts. It was my girlfriend, Xi Zhenxiang. What a coincidence with these two women, calling one after another. They must be plotting something again. I picked up the phone, and sure enough, Xi Zhenxiang went straight to the point. Honey, my bestie said you received 500 million today. Is it true? After getting my confirmation, she was absolutely ecstatic. She even praised me, which was a first. I knew you were capable and would eventually make a fortune. Yet in my previous life, she always looked down on me for being poor, mocking me by saying that I was only fit to be a warehouse manager. By the way, my bestie mentioned a wealth management plan that's perfect for you. As expected, they've conspired to come after my money. So I played along and asked if it was safe. Are the returns high? Seeing that I'd taken the bait, Shi Zhenxiang said happily, it's hard to explain over the phone. Let's take this chance to get together. After all, it's been a while since we had a proper meal together. I'll bring my bestie, and we can talk in person. I feigned agreement, gave some vague replies, and hung up. I'm no longer the simp from my previous life. They want to set me up. This is the perfect chance for me to collect some interest. The next morning, I went straight to the Zui Qingfeng restaurant. So shameless. Seeing me arrive, they were all smiles. After all, I was their cash cow. But I didn't waste time on small talk. I just had them load the prepared meals onto my truck. Then I drove straight to Huaxing Shopping Plaza. Shen Bingqian didn't lie to me. 5 excavators were at work, and the foundation for the perimeter wall was nearly finished. Once the site foreman realized I was the owner, he immediately let me through and into the supermarket. Once I drove the truck into the supermarket, I immediately climbed into the back. I specifically bought this truck to serve as a cover. After all, my space ability was far too inconceivable for the pre-apocalyptic world. But the supermarket is closed now. With no one around, I can safely store all these supplies in my personal space. Using the same method, I collected all 300 banquet spreads prepared by Zen Shamless into my space. With that done, I didn't stop to rest and headed straight to the fruit and vegetable wholesale market. Once the apocalypse hits, mutant beasts will roam outside the city. Without being a powerful awakener, getting fresh vegetables will be impossible. So now I must stock up on as many fruits and vegetables as possible. While I was busy stockpiling inside the CEO's office of the Huaxing Group, Shen Bingqian was in conversation with a middle-aged man. According to our investigation, there's nothing suspicious about him. Shen Bingqian stared at the files in her hand, looking perplexed. She had already had her friends at the police station investigate me once the day before. Yet, her suspicions remained unresolved. So today she conducted a more thorough investigation through the National Security Bureau. But the results were still clean. He had no ties to any foreign powers, nor had he ever been in contact with Secretary Xu or Director Chen. Then how does he know everything about Huaxing? The middle-aged man then spoke up. Based on our analysis, he appears to be a patriot. Most of his social media posts are spent criticizing sellout intellectuals and anti-patriots. Furthermore, his actions have all been for the good of Huaxing and the country. Therefore, I believe Chunan is a man who can be trusted. After hearing this, Shen Bingqian nodded in agreement. But something suddenly occurred to her. Besides taking the 500 million yuan payment the other day, he even took over our soon-to-open supermarket and made several bizarre demands. With that, she handed a list to the middle-aged man. Surveillance systems, 100 diesel generators, 100 solar power systems, 5 wheeled infantry fighting vehicles, and 6 combat robots. The man's expression grew more solemn. The initial items seemed normal, but the weapons listed further down put him on high alert. He said the weapons would stay in the supermarket. He wouldn't touch them and would return them in 15 days. I've already agreed to his terms, but to prevent any accidents, I stripped the weapons from the IFVs and the robots. At this point, Shen Bingqian revealed her plan. She had consulted this National Security Bureau official specifically to prevent any mishaps, fearing these weapons might fall into the hands of criminals. However, the middle-aged man rejected her approach. No, carry out all his instructions exactly as requested, and provide him with all the weapons and ammunition. To stay safe, I didn't leave the armored vehicle, but instead had the robots make a loud noise. If there are any zombies here, they'll definitely be drawn out. The next moment, a massive creature with a triangular head emerged from the cold storage. Looking through the binoculars, I realized it was actually a giant mantis. No wonder it's so quiet here. It must have killed everyone. I ordered the robots to keep honking to provoke it, because like zombies, these monsters' defenses are weak in the early stages. I was confident my robots could take it down easily. As it approached, I immediately ordered 3 robots to fire at its head. However, to my surprise, after a barrage of gunfire, the mantis was still alive. It seems the head isn't its weak spot. But the mutant mantis got scared and actually turned tail to flee. But there's no way I'm letting it go. There are so many supplies here, and I can't get past as long as it's still alive. So I ordered the robots again to attack its abdomen. This time it worked. A massive amount of green fluid gushed from its body, and soon the giant mutated mantis stopped moving. After repeatedly confirming it was dead, I got out of the car and entered the warehouse to gather supplies. Likely because of this mantis, there were no zombies in the warehouse either. I quickly transferred all the supplies from this warehouse into my space. However, just as I was about to leave, a faint sound of crying came from nearby, coming from the very room the mantis had crawled out of. I cautiously entered with 3 of the robots, and the sight inside made my skin crawl. The entire room was filled with massive insect eggs, and beneath them was a layer of living people. No wonder there was no one around. They had all been captured to serve as nourishment. It's only been a little over 10 hours since last night, and yet this mantis has already evolved to such an extent. Other creatures must be evolving rapidly as well. It seems I must speed up and increase my strength. Otherwise, a dozen or so robots won't be enough to stop those mutated monsters. In my previous life, 2 powerhouses emerged. One was San Biao, who awakened the blood tribe lineage, allowing him to suppress zombies and even take 2 zombie kings as his subordinates. Another was nicknamed Four-Eyed Chicken, who awakened the ancestral dragon bloodline. Whether it was mutated monsters or ordinary animals, they all feared him. Together, they dominated the entire Jiangdong region. The reason they became so strong was due to a type of fruit, the ability fruit, which can only be found at Feilong Mountain and the wetland park outside the city. Since I've been reborn, such a massive opportunity, I'll definitely seize it for myself. My strength will skyrocket once I do. However, they won't stumble upon that opportunity for another half month. For now, I'll deal with these insect eggs. They may be disgusting, but they can significantly enhance an awakener's power. So, I collected all the eggs into my space storage. Just as I finished, the people trapped below began to wake up. I ordered my AI robots to pull them all out. Witnessing my overwhelming power, they begged me to take them with me, but I'm no longer that holy mother from my past life. I tossed them some food and moved on to scour the other warehouses. Before long, I had completely cleared out all the resources here. I was ready to head out, but the moment I stepped outside, I saw a group of thugs bullying a little girl right in front of my car. The girl was crying helplessly, screaming for help, while a bald man grabbed her by the legs and tried to drag her away. We're in the middle of nowhere. You can scream until your throat is raw, but no one's coming. I'll take real good care of you on your father's behalf. I watched them with cold eyes. These people really are scum. They were just desperately pleading for my protection, and now they're already preying on a child. From my past life experience, people like this are either gangsters or hardened criminals. They are devoid of humanity, and keeping them alive is just asking for trouble. I didn't hesitate and ordered my robots to gun down 2 of the thugs. The remaining thugs were terrified and dropped to their knees, begging for mercy. Boss, it's a misunderstanding. This father and daughter tried to run away. I thought the girl looked pretty, so I was going to catch her and offer her to you. As soon as he finished, the little girl cried out through her sobs. They killed my father just so they could kidnap me. Just as I thought. Scum will always be scum, they have no sense of remorse. I immediately ordered the robots to move in and finish off the rest of them. I gazed coldly at those indifferent bystanders. They were so callous, lacking even a shred of courage. They'll lose their humanity sooner or later, keeping them alive only invites trouble. What a waste of the water and supplies I just left them. So, I immediately ordered the execution of everyone remaining. The young punk was stunned. He also hated those who stood by and watched. But after all, they were still living human beings. But seeing how ruthlessly I killed, he didn't dare utter a word. After looting the supplies from the bodies, I prepared to leave. But then, that young girl slipped into the car while I wasn't looking. I didn't kick her out. I won't be a holy mother, but I'm not entirely devoid of humanity either. She's all alone in this place now. I asked for her details, intending to drop her off at home. However, she wanted to follow me. I looked at her coldly. I don't keep deadweight around. What can you do? Suddenly, she shed her fragile act. I can cook, grow vegetables, and I can even help you kill zombies. I looked at her without a word and simply drove off. Since I'm the only one at the base right now, I could use someone to handle the chores. So I brought her back to the supermarket. Just as we arrived, that bitch Shi Zhenxiang happened to call, saying they were starving and begging me to save them. Since you're so eager to die, I'll send you to the afterlife tomorrow. The next day, I drove straight to Qinpei Guang's fitness club. I sent a message, come down, I'm waiting for you downstairs. A swarm of zombies surrounded the vehicle, but they were powerless against my battle wagon. Inside, Shi Zhenxiang beamed with joy as she spotted the armored vehicle outside. However, Qinpei Guang, standing beside her, frowned. You set me up as some big shot. With all these people here, I'll definitely be exposed. But Shi Zhenxiang didn't care at all. Once the zombies were gone, we'll trick them by saying we're leaving in batches. Then, we'll tell Chunen that it's just the two of us. Qinpei Guang nodded in agreement after hearing Shi Zhenxiang's plan. Then, as planned, they headed straight for my vehicle. Seeing them approach, I opened the door and stepped out of the combat vehicle. Shi Zhenxiang said coquettishly, President Qin happens to be here too, and he's planning to leave with us. However, I looked at him mockingly. A hint of murderous intent in my eyes. Since when does the owner of a tiny gym call himself a president? Shi Zhenxiang visibly panicked at my words. Honey, what do you mean? I don't understand. I laughed triumphantly and summoned my 3 AI solo combat robots. You two scoundrels really went to great lengths to scam me out of my money. Don't think I'm blind to what you've been doing behind my back. My voice was so loud that the nearby zombies were drawn back again. Shi Zhenxiang completely lost it and tried to scramble into the car. Qinpei Guang was also trembling uncontrollably with fear. President Chu, there must be a misunderstanding. Let's talk once we're inside. I gave him a cold look. If you have something to say, tell it to the King of Hell. With that, I got into the car and slammed the door shut, ordering the robots to throw them into the zombie horde. While the two were being torn apart by zombies outside, I sat back and sipped red wine. Once the zombies had finished their meal, I drove back to the supermarket. But as soon as I arrived, another person rushed over, eager to die. Shi Zhentian, her brother, kept pestering me to save them. I told him, I'll send a robot to pick you guys up, and they happen to live in the residential complex right across from me. So I remotely piloted the robots, and quickly arrived at the doorstep of my former apartment. Seeing the robots, Shi Zhentian greeted them with joy. His parents and girlfriend followed suit, heading downstairs behind the robots. However, they soon realized something was wrong. Weren't these robots supposed to be protecting them? Why did they keep staying behind them? So Shi Zhentian pulled out his phone, wanting to ask me what was going on. But the moment he checked his phone, he saw my message. Forgot to tell you guys, I've already fed that bitch your sister to the zombies. Now it's your turn. Shi Zhentian froze in shock upon reading the message. Seeing his expression darken, the rest of the family gathered around. But by the time they saw it clearly and tried to run, it was already too late. The robots seized them and marched them straight toward a horde of zombies. Staring at the terrifying zombies ahead, Shi Zhentian literally wet his pants in fear. Under my command, the robots tossed them directly into the zombie pile. In no time, the 4 of them were stripped to the bone by the undead. Watching my blood vendetta from my past life finally settle, I burst into laughter, but I quickly regained my composure. It's still the early stage of the apocalypse. Even though I have plenty of supply, I remember that by the 4th day in my previous life, safe houses had already been established. They began scavenging the entire city for resources, and half a month later, numerous shelters will emerge, and all remaining supplies will be carved up between them. So I must beat them to it and stay one step ahead. I drove straight to Walmart. I worked there in my past life, and I know it's packed with resources. However, just as I reached Hauda Plaza, I noticed that all the zombies here had already been cleared out. I cautiously scouted the perimeter but found nothing out of the ordinary. I led the robots to the entrance of the building. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind me as a flower pot plummeted from above, with a scrap of paper attached to it. Thinking of the dead zombies in the square, I grabbed the note and immediately retreated to the car.
Armored thugs inside. Do not enter.
Looking at those 8 scrolled characters, I decided to stay put and operate the robots remotely. I issued a command to the robots. If anyone inside is armed, eliminates them all. However, as soon as they entered the building, the thugs realized their intruders were mechanical monsters, and they fled in total terror without looking back. But they underestimated the robots' lethality. A mere 30 seconds later,
Every single bandit was gunned down.
but questions began to flood my mind. In my previous life, Gangs didn't start forming until 10 days in, because awakeners only began to appear on the 10th day of the apocalypse. Why are they already here on day 3? It wasn't until I spotted a scar-faced corpse that I understood. In my past life, a group of escaped Phalans seized Howder Square. Every one of them was an awakener, but no one knew what they looked like. All that was known were their leaders. One was Scarface, the other was Pockface. Pockface isn't among the dead, meaning he must still be in this building. I ordered the robots to search upstairs, when suddenly, a terrified scream erupted. The robots dashed toward the sound at my command. Soon, 3 robots reached the 4th floor. A pock-marked middle-aged man was holding a woman hostage. But when I saw her face, I cried out in surprise. Lin Xingya. In my previous life, she was a rare soul, kind-hearted and deeply grateful to those who helped her. Back then, when I was cornered by the people from Xiangjiang base. In the chaos of the emergency, Lin Xingya bolted immediately. I thought she was being ungrateful, but she returned shortly after, covered in wounds and bruises. It turned out she had gone to find her best friend, the Snow Queen Shen Bingqian. Risking her life, she fought through the zombie horde and ended up being scratched. Though she brought reinforcements to save me, she knew her transformation was imminent, so she charged straight at the enemy. Before I could use my blood to save her, she was killed by those awakeners. This remains the greatest regret of my life, regretting that I didn't save her because I feared exposing the secret of my undying bloodline. At that moment, the horse-faced man froze at the sight of the robot before him. He could have stalled if it were the police. But while he was dazed, I immediately ordered the robot to open fire. With a single gunshot, the robot precisely blew his head off. As Pockface collapsed, Lin Xingya finally breathed a sigh of relief. Before she could even catch her breath, I rushed out of the elevator and pulled her into my arms.
Seeing you alive, I'm finally at peace.
Lin Xingya was utterly bewildered. Do I know you? Your name is Lin Xingya. Measurements, 92, 63, 96. I blurted it out without a second thought. Lin Xingya was both shocked and indignant. That was a secret, known only to those closest to her. How did the stranger know? She had never even laid eyes on me before. Seeing her suspicion, I gave a playful smirk and started teasing her. I'm your lover from a past life, believe me. I failed to save her in my past life. This time I will ensure her absolute safety. Then we filled each other in on the situation. It turns out she was the one who dropped the flower pot earlier. She had been hiding in the computer room where the bandits couldn't reach her. But seeing me arrive, she worried I might get hurt. So she tried to sneak down and warn me while the others were distracted. But before she could get in, she was caught by this pockmarked man. After getting the full story, I took her along to continue scouring the building for supplies. As she watched items vanish one by one the moment I touched them, she was completely amazed. I didn't hide it from her, telling her about my space ability. Because as more people awaken, this won't be a secret for long. It took half a day, but I swept the entire mall clean. With that done, I started heading back with Lin Xingya. Halfway back, Shen Bingqian surprisingly called me. It turns out they're almost out of food, and she wants me to rescue her. A few days ago, she actually tried to talk me into giving them food for free, but I refused. It's not that I'm ungrateful. It's that she's naturally too domineering. In the apocalypse, a faction can only have one absolute leader. So I wanted her to suffer a bit first. Now that the government is in shambles and can no time to help them, she has no choice but to beg me for help. I have a cache of weapons. Are you interested? If you get us out of here, I'll give you every last one of them. I didn't care about the weapons though. I asked her how many people were left on her side. Sensing my interest, Shen Bingqian eagerly filled me in on the details. There are 32 male employees left, 21 of whom are security personnel. All of them are vetted military veterans. The reason Shen Bingqian became the Ice Queen in my past life was because she had over 20 awakeners under her command, and they were fiercely united. Even vicious thugs like Sang Biao and Four-Eyed Chicken didn't dare cross her. In the apocalypse, only those with strong hearts and unshakable willpower can awaken. Looking at it now, those awakeners are most likely these 20+ female soldiers. So I said, I can save you, but on 2 conditions. First, all your subordinates must obey me. Second, you become my woman. Xiaoxue, the girl I rescued, was crying. I opened the door and, after talking to her, found out the situation. It turned out her cousin was trapped at home and in grave danger. She begged me to save her. Initially, I had no intention of getting involved. But Xiaoxue cried, saying that Sang Biao was a monster. If you don't save my cousin, she's dead for sure. The moment I heard the name Sang Biao, I immediately changed my mind. After all, I've already stolen his destiny. He hasn't awakened his ability yet. Now is the perfect time to take him out. He was one of the top 10 powerhouses in my past life, and he was pure evil. He caused me so much trouble back then. If not for Shen Bingqian, I would have died many times over. So I took Xiaoxue and headed to her cousin's residential complex. Upon arrival, I saw 2 security guards armed with machetes standing at the entrance. They saw us approaching and started shouting insults. Beat it if you want to live. However, I didn't bother with them. I simply ordered the AI robots to gun them down. From their attitude, it was obvious they were Sang Biao's men. We soon reached Xiaoxue's cousin's apartment. Stepping out of the elevator, I saw a beautiful woman being led away in robes. Sang Biao saw us and was about to lash out, but I gave him no chance and ordered the AI robots to open fire. Kill everyone except the woman. They lived up to their name as China's top-tier robots. Very soon, the battle ended swiftly, and not a single hostage was harmed. It was only then that Xiaoxue's cousin finally snapped out of her shock. She rushed over, pulled Xiaoxue into an embrace, and burst into tears. It took quite a while for her to finally calm down. I learned that her name is Luo Yoyo. and she's a doctor. Sang Miao had targeted her because he coveted her beauty. But more importantly, he wanted to force her into his crew. After all, in this apocalypse, having a doctor is the ultimate insurance for survival. I had originally planned to leave immediately after the rescue, but now I've decided to bring Luo Yoyo along with me. At first, Luo Yoyo was hesitant to follow me, but once she heard from her cousin that my base was fully stocked with supplies, she immediately agreed. After all, she hadn't had a square meal in days. I headed back to the supermarket at once, but an anomaly occurred mid-journey. The sky had been perfectly clear just a moment ago. Then, sudden darkness plunged the world.
Watching the relentless lightning strikes, a sense of unease filled my heart.
An anomaly of this scale indicates that someone is awakening an ability. But even in my past life, I had never witnessed a scene like this. This suggests that several, a dozen, or even dozens of people are awakening their abilities simultaneously. In my previous life, awakeners didn't start appearing until day 10. It's only day 5. Could my rebirth be causing this butterfly effect? Regardless, I'm not strong enough yet. I must continue to increase my power. I suppressed my urge to investigate the source, and returned to the base with the 2 women. Just after we finished dinner at the base, I received a call from Shen Bingqian.
She simply said, "Get over here immediately. I have something to discuss."
And then she hung up.
Fearing something had gone wrong on her end,
I drove to the Huaxing building without delay, but once I arrived, I realized she had simply come to her senses. She had already decided to accept me. After all the current intelligence and reality proved that my words were true. Next, Shen Bingqian directly summoned all of her subordinates and announced that from now on, I am the boss of Huaxing. However, faced with this sudden news, these 20+ soldiers were initially reluctant. But after I promised to guarantee their food and supplies, and with Shen Bingqian becoming my woman, they finally all agreed. After all, in the current situation, whoever has the food is the master. And they were all thoroughly convinced. Since even Shen Bingqian has submitted now, they had nothing to complain about. However, just as I was relishing such a powerful boost, I suddenly felt a wave of dizziness and lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was already lying in bed. Looking at the surroundings, I guess this must be Shen Bingqian's bedroom. Now awake, the dizziness from before had completely vanished. My entire body felt an indescribable sense of comfort.
Could it be that my undying bloodline has awakened?
So I cut my finger, and a drop of golden blood flowed out. I had actually awakened my ability ahead of time, but amidst my excitement, I noticed this drop of blood was different from before. In my previous life, my undying blood was golden, but with nothing on the surface. Now, however, the surface of this blood had a multicolored divine luster. Isn't this the same light emitted by the food I ate? Could it be that I've awakened the blood tribe lineage? So, I have awakened the blood tribe lineage. The blood tribe lineage suppresses zombies. They won't dare come near me now. I could even build a zombie army. But I'm still not sure which one I've awakened. Since there's little difference between the two, then it hit me. Hasn't Shen Bingqian awakened yet? My undying blood has an 80% chance to awaken a normal person, and a 100% chance for those with potential to awaken early. If it works, she'll trust me completely. So I called Shen Bingqian over, and told her directly that drinking a drop of my blood could accelerate her awakening. Shen Bingqian didn't hesitate. She grabbed my hand and took a sip.
A short while later.
Shen Bingqian was stunned. She hadn't rested for days, yet all the exhaustion in her body had completely vanished, leaving her body feeling incredibly light. Shen Bingqian now completely believed what I had said. It seems I really do have a Holy Spirit constitution. As I said before, they should definitely give it a try. The next morning, I was woken up by a bone-chilling cold. I opened my eyes to find the entire room like a frozen wasteland. Shen Bingqian's body was surrounded by a shroud of white light, with waves of intense cold radiating from her. It seems she has awakened her ice ability. From this, it appears I've awakened both the Undying and Blood Tribe lineages. As the chill in the room grew increasingly heavy, I immediately woke Shen Bingqian up. Otherwise, at this rate, everyone in the building would freeze to death. Waking up, Shen Bingqian was stunned to see the room buried in ice, but she soon realized she had truly awakened her ability. She felt the icy aura filling the room, as an extension of her own body. With a single thought, all the frost in the room vanished. She was overjoyed by the effortless control she now had over her powers. It seemed Chunan really hadn't been lying to her. At that moment, she looked at me with eyes full of absolute trust. After I finished teaching Shen Bingqian the techniques to manipulate ice and snow, I returned to the supermarket to prepare for another trip, this time to Halda Plaza. In my previous life, that was where San Biao obtained a zombie king. But now that I've awakened the blood tribe lineage, I have absolute suppression over zombies. I can easily force that zombie king to become my subordinate. With that, my overall power will reach a whole new level. However, just as I stepped out, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was a friend request from teacher Qing from our complex. I had a deep impression of this woman. In fact, every man in the complex knew her. She wasn't just beautiful, but also incredibly kind-hearted. But in my previous life, her fate was tragic. After awakening his ability, Zhang Wuqi dropped his facade and started scavenging for supplies from every house. He didn't even spare the women, and Qin Yan was one of his victims. So I went ahead and accepted her friend request. After identifying herself, Qin Yan got straight to the point. She asked if I could spare some food, saying she was willing to offer anything in return. However, I was skeptical of her words. While many lose their humanity once the apocalypse hits, and many are willing to trade their bodies for a bite to eat, it shouldn't have reached that point this early. Based on what I know of her, she wouldn't resort to this so soon. Besides, according to the recent group chat, that bastard Zhang Wuqi should have already taken over as the leader of the complex. She shouldn't be coming to me. There's definitely a conspiracy at play here.
So I feigned agreement, but told her I was busy for now. I told her to come over once I'm free. Then I drove straight to Hauda Plaza.
But as soon as I got out, I realized all the corpses from a few days ago had vanished. Moreover, there wasn't a single zombie in sight. You see, this was where Sambiao recruited his zombie king in my previous life. There should have been a massive horde of zombies here. I rushed into the mall to keep searching, but surprisingly, I still couldn't find any. Just as I was about to give up and head back, a massive zombie in a military uniform appeared,
leading a pack of ordinary zombies to block the first floor exit.
Sambiao's zombie king from my past life was indeed a soldier. It looks like I found my target. This zombie seems to have developed consciousness. He knows how to cut off my escape. Facing such a large number of zombies, I didn't panic at all. My blood tribal lineage suppresses zombies, making them easy to handle. I immediately released my aura. Then, I ordered my robots to clear the path ahead. But after just a few steps, the zombies actually backed away in terror. Some of the weaker ones even fell to their knees. It seems the blood tribe lineage exerts immense pressure on me. If Sambiao could tame 2 zombie kings in the past life, then I certainly can too. Since even a dispersed aura is this effective, what if I focus all of it on a single zombie? I concentrated my mind and directed all my aura toward the soldier zombie. Sure enough, the moment he felt it, he dropped to his knees. Surprisingly, I could even sense his emotions. Since I can sense him, he must be able to understand me. I pulled out a piece of fresh beef and waved it at him. Want some? I asked. He actually nodded. After a few more attempts, I successfully subdued him. This future zombie king, however, just as I was celebrating, I received a plea for help from Lin Qingya. Chunan, someone has destroyed the security cameras at our main gate. Hearing this, a new question surfaced in my mind. Why did they run off after only destroying the front gate surveillance? To uncover their motive, I prepared to head back to the supermarket. But as I started the car, teacher Qing, who taught me this morning, sent me a message. The gist of it was that she wanted to have a feast at my supermarket tonight. She claimed she would agree to anything I wanted in return. I let out a mocking sneer. Do they really take me for a fool? One moment someone smashes my cameras, and the next she wants to visit. Isn't it obvious that someone is making a move on me? But I still don't know their actual strength yet. So I feigned agreement to Qin Yan's request, but told her I won't be free until tomorrow. Because today I plan to have my newly recruited zombie minions subjugate all the high-level zombies in the vicinity. Since the zombies move so slowly, it took me a full hour to return to the base. But as soon as I returned, Qin Yan suddenly video called me. It turned out those previous messages weren't sent of her own volition. The residents of the community had forced her to send them. They knew I had stockpiled a massive amount of supplies and wanted to use her to rob me. However, as soon as I agreed to let her come over, that group of people completely revealed their true colors. They didn't just want my supplies, they were planning to take me out. Kinda-hearted by nature, Qin Yan didn't want this blood on her hands, so she called under the guise of using the bathroom to tell me to flee. However, just as I was about to ask for more details about their plan, Qin Yan abruptly hung up the call. And just as I was about to press for more details about their plan, Qin Yan abruptly cut the video call. Before it disconnected, I vaguely heard Truly Shameless's voice, asking him what he was doing in the bathroom. Just as I thought, it's Truly Shameless pulling the strings from behind. I was wondering why, only 5 days into the apocalypse, Qin Yan would abandon his morals so quickly. It seems Truly Shameless is the one manipulating everything. I wasn't worried though. In fact, I was actually a bit excited. Not only do I have my robots, but I've also recruited quite a few zombie underlings. I was just worrying about how to feed them. Even though I have plenty of supplies, their daily consumption is massive. Now that Truly Shameless and her gang are here, they'll make perfect zombie fodder. And it seemed Truly Shameless was starting to suspect Qin Yan just now. Why don't I just play along and give him a hand? So, I took the initiative and sent Qin Yan a message. Hey gorgeous, you're welcome to come trade for food. Just let me know when you're on your way. My plan worked quickly. Qin Yan replied with a message. Big brother, I haven't eaten in days. Can I come over tonight? I looked at the phone with a mocking sneer. It seems Truly Shameless is getting impatient. I sent a lewd emoji and agreed to the request, but told them they must wait for my signal. After hitting send, I immediately called Lin Qingya and the others over, pulling out a mountain of cardboard boxes from my space. I had them build several paper houses in the yard. The 3 women found my request incredibly bizarre. What is Chunan building these for? But I was starting to feel a sudden wave of impatience. After brushing them off with a few vague words, I headed upstairs. I suddenly felt an overwhelming exhaustion and fell asleep almost instantly. But while I slept, the once placid sky, suddenly dark clouds gathered as a massive phantom loomed over the sky of Pujiang. He had a long hair and a deathly pale complexion, with 2 sharp fangs protruding from his mouth and a powerful, muscular build, holding a dragon-shaped rope. Wherever the phantom's gaze fell, all the zombies knelt down in worship. The entire Pujiang surged with ominous tension because of this apparition. But at that moment, I was completely unaware of it all, still fast asleep in bed. I don't know how much time had passed before Lin Qingya woke me up. She looked extremely panicked, as they had discovered a dozen massive zombies suddenly appearing at the gate, roaring incessantly at the entrance. A flicker of doubt crossed my eyes. Could it be the zombie king the first sent out has returned? So I went to the rooftop with her to investigate. Sure enough, the one leading them was the zombie king the first had dispatched. I smiled and told them, these are my new underlings. Don't be afraid. From now on, they will be here to protect us. Soon, 9 towering zombies were standing in the supermarket courtyard. Though they were incredibly fierce, they were clearly terrified of me, always keeping a respectful 1 meter distance. since I had already established a connection with the Zombie King.
I was now able to communicate with him directly. It turned out that while following my orders to subdue other zombies, he found that these high-level zombies nearby had all developed crystal cores. He simply told them that following him would mean an endless supply of flesh and blood. These zombies, having developed low-level intelligence, followed him without hesitation. I was quite surprised after hearing this. Growing a crystal core means they have evolved to C rank. In my past life, zombies were ranked from D rank, C rank, B rank, A rank, S rank, up to the Zombie King. To think they've already evolved to C rank in just a few days. That proves they have great potential and are worth nurturing, and they'll be crucial for building my future zombie army. To make management easier, I named the Zombie King Azu. He will lead these 8 zombies from now on, and I ordered them to go out and gather some zombie minions. I'm going to give them a feast tonight. After dinner that evening, Azu returned right on time with 8 high-level zombies and hundreds of minions. I had them hide in the paper structures I built. Since it was pitch black, anyone entering would hardly notice they were there. With everything ready, I sent Qingyan a message, telling him I was ready and he could come over. But 10 minutes passed, and there was still no reply from Qingyan. Did something go wrong on his end? Just as I was about to lead the zombies and charge over, Qingyan finally messaged me. It was a sexy photo. I immediately replied with a lecherous emoji. Come over here, babe. I can't wait. Upon seeing my message, those residents were ecstatic. They thought I had completely fallen for the trap. Soon, another message from Qingyan came. I'm at the supermarket entrance. Open the door, quick. I used the remote to open the gate and messaged her back. Meanwhile, the group lying in ambush outside the supermarket saw the gate open and immediately swarmed in. But once they were inside, they found the courtyard empty, except for some cardboard boxes. Not a soul was in sight. While they were still confused, the gate suddenly slammed shut. Only then did they realize they'd been played. But it was too late to escape. The gate used an electromagnetic lock. It was impossible to open by brute force. At that moment, I sent a message to Qingyan, telling her to run to the second floor. The reason I saved her was because she had previously exposed Zen Wuqi's scheme to me, so I figured she was worth sparing. Upon receiving my message, Qingyan chose to trust me without hesitation. She knew these people were only using her. Once she lost her utility, her end would surely be miserable. Zen Wuqi and his men looked at her with nothing but greed and lust. So while the others were distracted, she bolted toward the second floor. Seeing that Qingyan had made it upstairs, I immediately flipped the lights on. As for those who were about to search the area, when the lights came on, they realized the markers they followed were actually zombies. They tried to flee in panic, but there was no way out. The only door leading upstairs had already been sealed shut.
Amidst the non-stop agonizing screams,
These people were devoured one by one by Dajun and his horde. Soon 01000 plus intruders were wiped out by the zombie.
After feasting on so much flesh, Dajun's horde even evolved.
The 8 high-tier zombies evolved to B rank,
While Dajun reached A rank, or perhaps even S rank.
even the ordinary zombies underwent evolution. It seems fresh meat is indeed the best fuel for zombie evolution. However, once things quieted down below, I realized I hadn't seen Zen Wuqi throughout the entire ordeal. From Qingyan, I learned that he was actually undergoing an awakening. He was unconscious, which is why he didn't participate in this raid. I'll just have to find another opportunity to finish him off. I then ordered all the zombies to relocate to the basement. After all, having so many zombies in a supermarket was far too conspicuous. After settling Qingyan in, I headed off to get some sleep. The next day at noon, Ling Qingya rushed in while we were having lunch. She had just discovered in the surveillance room that all the cameras on the perimeter wall had been disabled, so she came to warn me immediately. I instantly lost my appetite and went to the window to investigate. However, what I saw next was even more shocking. The 3 armored vehicles in the courtyard were being mangled like scrap metal, and then all the robots were torn to pieces by an invisible force. I immediately realized an awakener was responsible, and Zen Wuqi instantly came to mind. In my previous life, he awakened a metal ability and gathered a band of thugs, eventually taking control of the entire residential complex. With a cold glint in my eyes, I rushed to the basement and ordered Azu to hide his zombie army in the courtyard. Azu has evolved and is now highly intelligent, so he carried out my orders swiftly. Shortly after I finished the preparations, the supermarket doors were slowly forced open. Led by Zen Wuqi, more than 30 people marched in, but they found the place completely empty. Are they all still asleep? They wondered. Zen Wuqi ordered his men to split up and search the area. However, just a few minutes later, gunshots rang out. A few thugs scrambled back in a panic. Boss, there are zombies inside. Zen Wuqi was stunned. The robots had been patrolling here just moments ago. If there were zombies, they should have been dealt with already. As he stood there puzzled, the pile of cardboard boxes by the door was suddenly tossed aside,
and 9 giant zombies lunged out.
Zen Wuqi fled for his life in terror, but these zombies seemed sentient. 4 of them actually split off to block the main exit. The rest gave chase, while even more zombies poured out from the supermarket.
his lackeys were all devoured in no time.
Suddenly, he spotted Qingyan and me standing on the second floor, looking down at him. Zen Wuqi finally realized that those who died yesterday hadn't been killed by robots, but by this very horde of zombies. Qingyan had betrayed him long ago. Everything was going according to my plan. He had lost from the very beginning. Before long, Zen Wuqi was also devoured by Azu. Seeing no survivors left below, I gave Qingyan his orders. After they finished the cleanup, I returned to my room. But shortly after, Lin Qingya came rushing over. I thought something was wrong, but it turned out they found a zombie that seemed to be dying. But when I followed her out to check, I broke into a wide grin. This isn't death, it's evolving into a zombie king. In my previous life, the first zombie king didn't appear until 6 months after the outbreak. Now, one has emerged in just 10 days. If news of this got out, it would surely shock the entire world. After all, just a few zombie kings caused the global catastrophe in my past life. Countless awakeners were slaughtered back then. If Azu truly succeeds in evolving, but just as I was envisioning a glorious future, a ringtone interrupted me. It was a call from Shen Bingqian. Apparently, an ability union has been established in Pujiang. 5 of her people have awakened their abilities. She wanted to take this chance to join the Pujiang Ability Association, but I refused immediately. I told her that if anyone disobeyed orders and joined, death would be their only end. In my previous life, those association members were nothing but traitors. They conspired with foreign interests to slaughter their own compatriots. I have no intention of colluding with them. Hearing my stern tone, Shen Bingqian quickly agreed to stay away from them. She also shared another piece of news. A massive phantom appeared over the Pujiang River yesterday. Word online is that someone has awakened the Blood Tribe lineages. Now every faction is trying to recruit him. Hearing it was the Blood Tribe, I was instantly on high alert. Based on the timing, it happened exactly while I was asleep yesterday.
Could it be that I have evolved once again?
So I brushed off the conversation with Shen Bingqian and hung up. Then I returned to my room to inspect my own body. By now, my skin had turned a bronze hue and was as hard as steel. I tried to slash it with a fruit knife, but it didn't even leave a scratch. It must be because of that ability fruit I consumed. My body is evolving every second. Next, I must seize that opportunity belonging to Four-Eyed Chicken. After all, he became a powerful warlord in my past life after eating that fruit. Never mind, according to the timeline, there are only a few days left. While I was lost in thought, Lin Qingya approached me, looking deeply troubled. After some questioning, I learned she had a younger sister staying with relatives. They're out of food at her aunt's house and she wanted me to deliver some supplies. I wasn't planning on going, but when she mentioned the eastern suburbs, I changed my mind because Feilong Mountain is right there. That's exactly where Four-Eyed Chicken found that crystal-like fruit and awakened the ancestral dragon bloodline. Besides, Lin Qingya died saving me in my past life. I'll consider this a repayment. Since the armored vehicle was destroyed, I had to take the truck instead. But that works out fine considering the robots were destroyed too. I'll have to bring the zombies along for backup though they are quite conspicuous. The truck will serve as the perfect cover. So we immediately drove to her aunt's place. When we pulled up to the residential complex, Lin Qingya's aunt and her family of 3 were already waiting at the gate. The moment the car stopped, Lin Qingya's aunt actually tried to pry open the trunk. I stopped the fat woman immediately. There were 4 zombies in that trunk, and they couldn't be discovered. So I hauled out several boxes of food from the cab. At the sight of the supplies, the fat woman's eyes squinted into slits from her greedy grin. Then she ordered her scrawny husband and pudgy son to start unloading the supplies. But Lin Qingya cut them off and demanded, "Where is Xiaoxi?" At first, the fat woman tried to brush her off, claiming Xiaoxi was out visiting neighbors. But Lin Qingya wasn't buying it. In this chaotic world, who would let a child wander off to play? Lin Qingya used the supplies as leverage, stating that if she didn't see Xiaoxi today, they wouldn't get a single scrap of these supplies. The scrawny husband and the pudgy son were about to snap and lash out at Lin Qingya, but one look at my menacing glare silenced them instantly. Since my evolution, my physique has become incredibly powerful, and with the murderous aura I exude, ordinary people are terrified of me. Realizing she could no longer hide the truth, the fat woman finally admitted that Xiaoxi had turned into a zombie. Hearing this, Lin Qingya could no longer contain her rage. She roared at the fat woman. How exactly did Xiaoxi die? But just as the fat woman began to explain, a bald old man leading a Tibetan mastiff interrupted her. I was thrilled. Could he have awakened a winged ability? I had given him my blood to drink a few days ago, but there was no reaction at the time. I thought she wouldn't be able to awaken, but I didn't expect her to awaken today in a fit of pure rage. Seeing how furious Lin Qingya was, I hurried over to calm her down. Killing them like this is too easy on them. Why don't you do it my way? Hearing my words, Lin Qingya halted her assault. I walked up to the chubby guy and said, "If you want to live, kill your mother. As long as you do it, I'll let you go." Only then did Lin Qingya settle down. Watching them turn on each other was far more satisfying than a quick death. I tossed the chubby guy a knife. To my surprise, he suddenly turned vicious, raising the blade to strike her immediately. Completely ignoring his mother's pleas, muttering to himself, "Since you've sacrificed for me so many times, just sacrifice yourself one more time." But just as he was about to strike, I stopped him again. I felt that would be too merciful. I ordered him to carve her up piece by piece, starting with the limbs. Amidst a series of heart-wrenching screams, the fat woman was eventually tortured to death by her own son. Seeing her gruesome end, Lin Qingya's fury mostly subsided. Looking at the chubby man kneeling on the ground, I sneered, "Well done. Since I promised not to kill you, I'll keep my word." The chubby guy's face lit up with joy as he prepared to leave, but my next word scared him out of his wits. "I won't kill you, but your cousin never made such a promise." The next second, the newly awakened Lin Qingya tossed him straight into a horde of zombies. Keeping such a beast alive would only pollute the air. Not until he was completely devoured did Lin Qingya finally find peace. Now that this is settled, it's time to head to Feilong Mountain to claim the Four-Eyed Geek's destiny. With that, we immediately drove off toward Feilong Mountain, but on the way I noticed that we were being followed. I didn't alert them. Instead, I planned with Lin Qingya that once we arrived, we would ambush them at the foot of the mountain. Upon arrival, I immediately ordered the 3 zombies to kill whoever opens the trunk. Then I hid behind a nearby bush with Lin Qingya. Sure enough, a group of thugs armed with AK-47s showed up shortly after. To my surprise, the leader was none other than Four-Eyed Chicken. Who would have thought he was the head of a firearms syndicate? Most importantly, this guy is a total devil incarnate. In my past life, he colluded with the Monad Biocorp from the US, clashed with the Snow Queen Shen Bingqian multiple times, and slaughtered countless military awakeners. Since he hasn't awakened yet, this is the perfect time to eliminate him. Finding the car empty, they assumed we'd headed into the mountains and prepared to open the trunk. Noticing the tires were low from the weight, they thought it was loaded with supplies. They gleefully forced the door open, only to be greeted by the zombie that had evolved into a zombie king. The two thugs who opened the door were instantly mauled to death, and the rest fled in terror at the sight. Though they were armed, the shots they fired proved utterly useless. These evolved zombies
Are already immune to ordinary firearms.
Soon the zombies had slaughtered the thugs, leaving only 4-eyed chicken and one lackey alive. Just as they thought they might escape, Ling Qingya and I leaped from the bushes and blocked their path. Seeing me, 4-eyed chicken realized he'd been set up. He immediately opened the fire, aiming straight at me. But in my currently evolved state, the speed of ordinary bullets is like slow motion to me. I caught the bullet midair and charged right at 4-eyes, snapping his arm instantly. Seeing their boss mangled, his henchmen tried to flee,
only to be devoured in one bite by the arriving zombie king.
Looking at 4-eyes wailing on the ground, I prepared to let the zombie king finish him off. But 4-eyes pleaded that if I spared him, he'd tell me a secret. Intrigued, I looked down at him and told him to speak. If it's worth something, I'll let you live. But his next words caught me off guard. He actually knew I had awakened the blood tribe lineage. He actually knew about my blood tribe lineage. It turns out Monad Biochemical discovered it the very night I awakened, and put out a bounty of 20 gene potions for information on me. Now, seeing that I can control zombies and possess such power, he concluded that I was the one they were looking for. I frowned upon hearing that Monad was after me. Monad is one thing, but the field family behind them is the real threat. They control hundreds of biochemical labs across the globe. Having dominated Europe and America for centuries, I'll have to be extremely cautious from now on. But this secret changes nothing. If I kill him now, no one will ever know. As I moved in for the kill, he immediately begged for mercy, shouting that he knew another secret. There's a dragon egg on Mount Phelan. If you get it, you can hatch a powerful mutated beast and use it to create an army of biochemical soldiers. I heard the military and Monard already sent teams there yesterday to save his life. 4-eyes spilled every secret he had, but hearing about the dragon egg made me skeptical. I'd never heard of it in my previous life. Perhaps I was just too weak back then to even know of its existence. But for now, my only priority is finding that ability fruit. Once I evolve, I'll be able to suppress any mutated beast that crosses my path. With the military and Monad here, I must accelerate my search. I stationed a few zombies to guard the foot of the mountain, while Ling Qingya and I immediately made our way up. However, after searching for ages with no luck, we ran into a swarm of venomous snakes. Just as I was about to pull a gun from my space, a burst of gunfire rang out nearby, and the snakes in front of us were shredded to pieces. I looked up to see a squad of fully armed female soldiers approaching us. I soon learned they were from the East China Military Region's Women's Special Forces, on a mission here, and had happened to see us in danger. They stepped in to clear the threat for us. To avoid suspicion, we pretended we were just scavenging for food on the mountain. To my surprise, upon hearing that we were hungry, the officer in charge actually ordered her squad to share their compressed biscuits and water with us. I couldn't help but feel a wave of nostalgia. Only the soldiers of the people would still do such things in the apocalypse. In my previous life, the military exhausted every resource to protect the survivors, but ultimately they were undermined by far too many traitors. Even the civilians who were protected by the military in the beginning turned on them after awakening. Eventually,
The military was dismantled by the combined treachery of various factions.
just as I thought they were done after giving us the food, the leading soldier handed me a gun and plenty of ammunition, telling us to defend ourselves. After parting ways, we resumed our search for the fruit, but when we reached the peak and found the pool, it was empty with nothing left but some eggshell fragments. It seems Forrest was right, there really were dragon eggs here, but they must have hatched already and devoured all the ability fruits. Since there was nothing left to take, there was no point in staying, so we immediately headed back down the mountain. Terrified, the man begged for mercy, pleading with me not to let him be eaten. He was willing to tell me everything he knew. Turns out they had an awakener with them, who could briefly rewind time in a specific area. By observing the playback, they discovered I could control zombies. They realized I was a blood tribe lineage awakener, and wanted to capture me for a reward. After all, I'm the primary target the Monarch Corporation is after. After hearing that, I pressed him. You're here for the dragon eggs, right? They were gone when I checked. Did you guys take them? Desperate to save his life, the blonde man claimed that their team had already secured the dragon eggs. He said their people were gathering on the mountain at the 1 o'clock position, and he could lead me straight to them. He finished speaking and looked at me with a fawning expression. I ignored him and simply walked aside. He thought I was letting him off the hook, but in the next second, the zombie king tore his throat out. A sneer of mockery played across my face. Why would I ever try to reason with American scum like them? In my past life, the Monad Corporation controlled nearly half of Huasha, essentially turning our great nation into their biochemical colony. I'm no saint, but when it comes to trash like this, I'll kill every single one I see. The zombie king finished his meal quickly, so I had him recall the zombies I'd sent to take cover earlier. There are still a few corpses of awakened ones here. It's the perfect chance for that unevolved zombie to feed on them. That way, I'll have 4 zombie kings under my command. They will be a massive help in my quest to seize the dragon egg. So once they finished devouring the corpses, we headed straight for the next mountain peak. Sure enough, As we neared the summit, we spotted a group of armed militants. To my surprise, the Chinese female soldiers who had helped us before were being held at gunpoint, and the group was about to execute them. I immediately ordered the 4 zombie kings, spare the female soldiers, but wipe out everyone else. Having devoured so many awakened ones, the 4 evolved zombie kings now possess intelligence nearly equal to humans. Under the cover of darkness, 4 men were swiftly taken out. The militants didn't notice the 4 zombie kings until they heard the screams. Ignoring the female soldiers, they raised their weapons and opened fire on the zombies. But now, the zombie kings are completely immune to conventional firearms. Soon, only 7 or 8 of the 20+ militants on the summit remained. Sensing defeat, the survivors immediately turned to flee down the mountain, but they only made it a few steps before running into Lin Qingya and me. Driven by desperation and bloodlust, they didn't even look twice, and opened fire directly at us. The female soldiers spotted us as well. Thinking we had stumbled into this mess by mistake again, they moved to come and save us. But in the next second, they were frozen in shock. I had actually caught every single bullet with my bare hands. Furthermore, Lin Qingya, whom they had thought was just a frail woman, suddenly erupted with a white whirlwind from her entire body, flinging several men down the mountain to their deaths. The remaining few were swarmed and slaughtered by the encroaching zombies. By now, the female soldiers were utterly speechless with shock. Only now did they realize that we were awakeners. They had mistaken us for ordinary people before, even foolishly telling us to flee for our lives. But their astonishment didn't end there. Those 4 zombies actually stood behind me with absolute deference. It turned out even these zombies were my subordinates. Now, they looked at me with eyes full of awe and terror.
With such power, even the military wouldn't dare cross him.
They quickly approached me to express their gratitude. What are you doing here? One of them voiced his confusion, as this operation was top secret. By all logic, no outsider should have known about it. Seeing his bewilderment, I offered an explanation. We just ran into some Monad Company goons who were foolish enough to attack me, so I dealt with them effortlessly. They spilled this secret in a desperate attempt to save their lives, so I decided to come over and join the fun. I didn't expect to find you lot held captive. The female soldiers' faces darkened as they heard my words. After some questioning, I learned they were the ones who had secured the dragon egg. However, they had only reported this to their superior, Minister Wu. Even when they called to confirm just now, it was Minister Wu who ordered them to hand the dragon egg over to those men. Little did they know, the moment the egg changed hands, those people intended to execute them. It was clear now, Minister Wu was definitely the traitor. At the mention of his name, I cut in immediately. Minister Wu? What's his full name? It's Wu Jiechao. Why do you ask? The female soldier replied. So it's Body Wu. He's nothing but a lapdog for Monard. The Americans bought him off years ago. I sneered. Ever since Baldy Wu sold his soul to the Field family, no one knows how he did it, but he actually awakened 3 different abilities. And by relying on these 3 terrifying powers, he completely wiped out many righteous awakeners in East China. Even Shen Bingqian nearly died at his hands. But after hearing what I said, the female soldiers were skeptical, asking, how do you know all this? I didn't explain, just brushed them off and changed the subject. However, they believed me by this point. After all, tonight's events proved that only Minister Wu knew about this. By the way, where's that dragon egg you guys found? My question interrupted their train of thought. Then, one of the female soldiers told me what had happened. It turns out the dragon egg they found had already hatched, and it had transformed into a little girl.
But she vanished right after the handover earlier.
I was shocked to hear it had actually taken human form. I was planning to keep it as a pet, but now that seems impossible. I had my zombie kings devour the corpses and then prepare to leave, but as we were heading down the mountain, the female soldiers called out to me. They realized that Bald Wu definitely wanted them dead. Going back now would be like walking right into a trap. Since Wu Jiechao was the operation commander and they had no evidence, no one would believe them. But they had nowhere else to go, and they were in awe of my terrifying strength. With me as a backer, their safety would be guaranteed. I looked at them mockingly. So you realize, going back is just suicide. But let me give you a fair warning. I don't house freeloaders. If you stay, you obey me unconditionally. Otherwise, don't blame me for kicking you out. So after they gave me their word, they returned to the base with me. After returning to the base, I began to disguise the zombie kings. Their intelligence is now basically on par with that of an ordinary person, but taking them out directly would be too conspicuous. So I put coats on them, along with hats and sunglasses. If you don't look closely, you basically won't notice anything wrong. Just as I was admiring my handiwork, Shen Bingqian called me. Listening to her story over the phone, my face instantly darkened. It turned out that more than 10 awakeners had already emerged on their side, but more than half of them wanted to join the ability users guild, including those who hadn't even awakened any abilities. They felt their current strength was insufficient. If they encountered a zombie horde or beast type, they didn't think I could protect them and believed joining the guild was safer. So I told Shen Bingqian to give those people a message. My stance remains the same. Anyone who wants to join that guild will face only one outcome, death. After hearing what I said, Shen Bingqian didn't say much more and hung up. After she hung up, I thought about it for a long while. I decided I had to go to Huaxing if I didn't provide some deterrent. They'd think they were invincible just because they had awakened. So I took 2 zombie kings with me and headed straight to the Huaxing build. However, as soon as I arrived at the building, the zombie king beside me told me he smelled an awakener's blood. It wasn't just one but several, and they had only recently died. Now, as they have advanced in rank, they can already distinguish between ordinary people and awakeners by scent. At this point, I began to worry about Shen Bingqian's safety. Could it be that hostile awakeners have invaded Huaxing? I tried calling Shen Bingqian, but no one answered for a long time. Something has definitely happened. And something Could an awakener have stormed Huaxing? I called Shen Bingqian, but there was no answer for a long time. Something is definitely wrong. I immediately ordered the 2 zombie kings to smash open the main gate. The people in the hall saw 2 tall strangers in trench coats enter, and they immediately opened fire,
Thinking they could take them down with a single headshot.
They were shocked to hear only the sound of clashing metal. The 2 mysterious figures were completely unscathed. The 2 zombie kings then lunged into the crowd, quickly neutralizing several gunmen without killing them, only inflicting injuries. Since the situation was still unclear, I had instructed them to only break their limbs at most. The commotion drew the attention of even more people. Several awakeners rushed over, instantly unleashing lightning,
Illusions, data manipulation, and other abilities.
but because the gap in their levels was too great, these abilities could only briefly slow the 2 zombie kings down. Soon, everyone in the hall had been dealt with. Once the area was cleared, I finally stepped into the hall. Only then did I realize that these people were actually employees of Huaxi. I had assumed outside awakeners had broken in, but it seems these awakeners have staged a mutiny. I grabbed someone at random and demanded to know Shen Bingqian's location. Learning she was in the back office, I rushed there immediately. Upon entering, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Shen Bingqian was merely unconscious, slumped over her desk, but several corpses lay around her, each killed by a clean headshot. I hurried to check on her, although her breathing was normal. No matter how much I called out, she wouldn't wake up. So, carrying her in my arms, I returned to the main lobby and angrily demanded to know from the people on the floor what had happened. At that moment, an ordinary employee hesitated for a long time before stepping forward. It turned out those dozen or so awakeners were resentful that I hadn't let them join the Awaken Union. They saw me as nothing more than a mobile humanoid warehouse, possessing no real power yet constantly keeping them under restriction. Given that, they figured they might as well be the bosses themselves. So they planned to use Shen Bingqian to lure me here and kill me. That way, they wouldn't have to worry about food or supplies anymore. After hearing this, I looked coldly at the group on the ground. Just like in my previous life, when faced with massive self-interest, these people inevitably reveal their selfish and greedy nature. I immediately ordered the 2 zombie kings to slaughter all these ability users on the floor. Instantly, the crowd on the floor began pleading in agony for me to spare them. But just as the 2 zombie kings were about to strike, the elevator doors suddenly slid open, and a voice rang out, "What are you guys doing down there? I was just about to have some fun, and your wailing is killing the mood." 2 men appeared in the elevator, but their voices stopped abruptly when they saw the crowd lying on the floor.
And me, holding Shen Bingqian, staring back at them coldly.
The people on the ground began begging them for help. But seeing that so many ability users were no match for me, they had no intention of saving anyone and scrambled to press the close button to escape. Before I could even give the word, the 2 zombie kings lunged forward. Seeing that they were about to be caught, one man in the elevator immediately kicked the man in front of him out. The man who was kicked out collided head-on with the 2 zombie kings. Just then, the elevator doors closed and the man escaped. Seeing him flee, I immediately took the elevator up to give chase. But by the time I arrived, it was already too late. With their formidable physical fitness, today's ability users can easily traverse between buildings. Watching his figure vanish into the distance, a trace of worry lingered in my heart. I have now completely broken ties with him. Since he knows the secret of my space ability, he will definitely spread the word. Many people will surely come to try and seize it then, but I couldn't worry about that now. So I immediately returned to the lobby. I ordered the 2 zombie kings to bring all these ability users back. With 4 high-level zombies at the base and so many ability users, it should be enough to help them evolve into zombie kings. Shen Bingqian is still unconscious. I have no way to treat her if we stay here. So we returned to the base immediately. After all, Luo Yoyo is a doctor. She should have a way. After returning to the base, I had Azu bring the remaining 4 zombies over and told them to devour all the ability users in the truck. Then I immediately summoned Luo Yoyo. Upon learning that Shen Bingqian was injected with anesthetics, Luo Yoyo told me there was nothing she could do right now. The base currently lacks any usable medication. However, exercise could help metabolize the drug faster. Exercise? I was stunned. She's unconscious. How can she exercise? But seeing Luo Yoyo's suggestive smirk, I understood. The next morning, Shen Bingqian left after waking up. She still had some loose ends to tie up over at Huaxing. At that moment, I walked into the courtyard and saw a zoo patrolling with 8 zombies. But I discovered that of the 4 remaining high-level zombies, only 2 had evolved into zombie kings. Thanks to Azu's explanation, I realized why. It turns out those 4 zombies were originally at a lower level than the others. Having 2 of them evolve was already the limit. However, the other 2 were only half a step away from becoming zombie kings. At this moment, Azu continued, "Master, can we continue devouring ability users? That way, not only will the others be able to evolve, but those of us who are already zombie kings can continue to level up." His words made my eyes light up with excitement.
In my past life, zombie kings were the most powerful beings I had ever encountered.
I have no idea what ranks lie beyond that level. But now that Azu says they can evolve further by consuming ability users, I'm instantly thrilled. If a zombie king is already this formidable, just imagine if they leveled up again. What kind of terrifying entities would they become? After considering it for a while, I ordered Azu to take the other 6 zombie kings and head out. I want them to gather every single zombie in the city, because I've come up with a plan. I recall that in my previous life, Molnar Corp raised many ability users and engineered numerous biochemical beasts. Since conflict with them is now inevitable, I might as well strike first. That way my zombie kings will have plenty of food to feast on. After the zombie kings departed, I didn't just sit around. I was still concerned about that escaped ability user. So I sent the female soldiers to repair the surveillance system at the main gate. As former special forces, they were well acquainted with Hua Xing's text, and they had the cameras back online in no time. To prevent any more ambushes, I ordered them to monitor the feeds closely. They are to report any suspicious activity to me immediately. The next few days passed peacefully and without incident. I didn't even go out looking for fortuitous encounters, yet my ability has upgraded again. It seems that fruit is indeed refining my body every single moment. To my surprise, through this evolution, I've actually mastered a domain. You should know, in my past life, only the top-tier powerhouses possessed one. Right now, I'll manifest my domain. Instantly, I can sense everything within a 100-meter radius of myself. It's as if everything is right before my eyes. Moreover, everything within the domain seems to have slowed down. It seems the slow motion effect I saw before was just the prototype of this domain. The range used to be small, but after this evolution, it has expanded significantly. Just as I was enjoying the effects of my new domain, I suddenly sensed that Azu and the others had returned. He's roaring at the gate right now, signaling that he needs to see me. So I immediately headed to the main gate. Looking down, I saw a dense swarm of zombies standing behind Azu. I estimate there are at least 400 of them, and judging by their auras, they're all high-level zombies. It seems the task I assigned to him has been completed. Basil came to my side and reported that they had discovered many abnormalities. The number of mutant creatures in the city is rapidly increasing. Even ordinary insects are mutating on a massive scale. Mantises have grown as large as bulls. Even the livestock in the city has begun to mutate. Some powerful animals are already showing signs of evolving into beast kings. Under their leadership, they've even started competing with the zombies for territory. Human awakeners have also begun forming groups to hunt them down. As a result, many zombies haven't tasted flesh and blood for days. To minimize casualties among the horde, he brought all the zombies back here. I was stunned by his report. He brought them all back, so I asked him how many there were, but I was stunned when he told me the number. A staggering 2 million. It took me by surprise. Before the apocalypse, Pujiang only had a population of 6 million. With that many zombies, imagine the amount of flesh and blood they consume daily. Fortunately, zombies C rank and above can survive long periods without food, but even so, they still require a massive amount of sustenance every day. I fell into deep thought, but an idea soon struck me. Arthur just mentioned that a large number of animals are mutating, and this same thing happened right before the beast tide in my previous life. Except last time, it didn't happen until 6 months in. I don't know what caused this to happen early, but it's the perfect chance for the zombie kings to go and hunt these animals that haven't fully matured yet. Plus, their crystal cores can accelerate zombie evolution. The zombie kings were thrilled to hear this. The city is currently crawling with mutated rats, cats, and dogs, which the zombie kings can easily eliminate. So I split the 7 zombie kings into 7 squads, and ordered each team to produce another zombie king within a month. After giving my orders, I headed back to my room. But shortly after, a female soldier rushed in. It turned out they'd spotted a group of armed men lurking outside the supermarket. I headed downstairs immediately, but told the female soldiers to stay put and not come down. I wanted to test out my domain ability. As soon as I got out, I noticed the door was slowly opening by itself, even though no one was around. Sensing something was off, I immediately expanded my domain. A figure instantly appeared in my sight, someone I actually recognized. Cao Wuli, the terror of ghosts. I just stepped out, only to find the door opening slowly on its own, yet there was no one around. Sensing something was wrong, I immediately expanded my domain. Suddenly, a figure appeared in my sight, someone I actually recognized. Cao Wuli, the bane of ghosts. In my past life, this guy relied on his ghost shadow ability to dominate the entire East China region. Even Sang Biao and the four-eyed sheik couldn't do anything to him. To think this guy is the one targeting me. By now, the main gate had swung wide open, and over 100 gunmen immediately surged in from outside. Leading them was a fat man. Seeing I was alone, he ordered his men to charge and capture me alive. Watching the 100+ men rushing at me, I didn't panic at all, because within my domain, their movements were as slow as a snail's pace. While I remained completely unaffected, I wove through the crowd like a phantom. Before long, I had snapped the limbs of 5 men. I didn't kill them only because I needed them as fodder for us. Seeing how powerful I was, the fat man was terrified and tried to flee. But old Ghost Assault didn't run. Instead, he stealthily drew a dagger and approached me, thinking I couldn't detect his presence. Yet, just as he lunged, I suddenly countered with a backhand grip, violently snapping his wrist in 2 before breaking his legs as well. At that moment, his form was finally revealed. Kneeling on the ground, he roared in disbelief, asking how I could see him. Ignoring him, I turned to hunt down the rest of the group. In no time, I had wiped them all out. The female soldiers watching from upstairs were completely stunned. They had wondered why I hadn't asked for their help. It turns out it simply wasn't needed. They would only be a burden if they went along. It seems I was still holding back my true strength at Feilong Mountain. At this moment, they looked at me with eyes full of respect and adoration. So I summoned the female soldiers to come down and help clean up. But when they appeared, the fat leader was visibly stunned for a moment. He recovered quickly, but I didn't miss his reaction. It seems the fatty knows them. There must be a conspiracy at play. I immediately walked up to the fatty with a baseball bat in hand. I demanded he tell me everything he knew, or face certain death. At first, the fatty tried to bluff his way through and talk nonsense to me, but I slammed the bat directly into his leg. His limbs were already crippled, and as the bones shattered once more, he began to howl in agony. He quickly spilled everything he knew. It turns out they were from the Xiangjiang base. A few days ago, a man named Xu Ze sought them out.
He claimed to be a Huaxing employee and told them
that I had awakened the space ability and stockpiled massive amounts of supplies.
so their boss, Feng Shaofeng, sent them to seize everything.
Hearing this, I paused. It was exactly as I had feared.
The one who escaped must have spread the news about my stockpile.
I must finish him off the next time we meet.
What concerned me more was that they were actually from the Xiangjiang base.
In my previous life, I would have died at their hands if it wasn't for Lin Qingyang.
Now that they're targeting me again, I need to eliminate them as soon as possible. However, their leader Feng Shaofeng is incredibly chungy. In my past life, no one knew his ability for the first 2 years of the apocalypse. That's because everyone who fought him ended up dead. It was only after he became the first to reach the 9th rank.
It was then everyone realized he could summon 2 dragon souls to fight for him.
I questioned Fatty again to find out their current strength.
I plan to seize this moment to annihilate the Xiangjiang base and settle all our scores.
Besides, it's the perfect chance for the Zombie King and the others to evolve again. To save his own skin, Fatty spilled everything. Their base currently has 11 awakeners, and 17 more awakeners are arriving tomorrow. That's strange. Why are so many awakeners gathering there all at once?
I kept pressing Fatty for answers.
He only knew they were planning to ambush the military or something similar.
But he didn't know the exact details. Seeing he had no more value, I was ready to finish him off. Fatty begged for mercy again, claiming he had one more secret to tell me. Apparently, they received a bounty from Monar.
The targets are the female soldiers in my base. As long as they get their corpses,
They can trade them for firearms and evolution potions.
No wonder he was so stunned when he saw them earlier. But how did Monar know they were still alive? They haven't contacted the outside world since returning from Feilong Mountain.
I looked at the female soldiers. It's true they made one phone call,
But it was to the military high command.
we were reporting the situation regarding Wu Jiechang. Their words left me stunned.
Is someone in the military high command colluding with Monar? I never heard of this in my past life, but I can't worry about that now. Right now, increasing my strength is the top priority.
I continue to intimidate Fatty.
That secret of yours is worthless. Give me something useful, or I'll feed you to the zombies. Terrified by my threats, Fatty finally revealed a useful piece of information.
Tomorrow, Sakura country will send a group of biochemical experts over.
They intend to conduct mutant experiments on our soil. Hearing the Fatty's words, a surge of anger rose within me. As a Huaxia citizen, even in these chaotic times, those from Sakura country are the ones I loathe the most. How dare they send people here to conduct their experiments? In my past life, Monard and Sakura country created countless mutants, eventually seizing half of Huaxia's territory. Since I know about them now, their many ability users can not only help Azu and the others evolve, but I can also crush them before they grow stronger. Eliminating them now will remove a massive threat for the future. I turned back to the Fatty hoping to squeeze out more intel, but he couldn't remember anything else. So, amidst his curses,
I let the zombies beside me devour him.
with that done, I gave orders to the female zombie soldiers. Once the team returns, have them guard the supermarket. Devour anyone who dares to approach, because next I need to plan my move against the Xiangjiang base.
I have 7 zombie kings now. Once those 2 high-level zombies finish devouring today's flesh,
They should also evolve into zombie kings. By then, I'll have 9 zombie kings. With such power, I can easily crush any faction. With that, I returned to my room, but as soon as I sat down, Qingyan and Lu Yuyu came to find me. It turns out they have also awakened their abilities. Qingyan awakened the telekinesis. In my past life, someone else had this ability. Though weak at first, that person eventually killed a rank 9 powerhouse.
and now Qingyan has awakened it as well.
She will undoubtedly become a powerful asset to me in the future. Lu Yoyo's awakening turned out to be a type of space ability. She can trap someone inside a bubble, completely isolating them. They can't see the outside, yet they remain vulnerable to external attacks. Hearing this, I was instantly thrilled.
With 4 women having awakened their powers,
I might as well form an all-female squad of awakeners. While I was lost in thought, Azu returned from his patrol. They had been patrolling the supermarket's perimeter as ordered, but they unexpectedly stumbled upon an awakener. Before he died, he confessed they were from the Xiangjiang base. I fell silent for a moment after hearing Azu's report.
It seems that fat guy was telling the truth.
I immediately ordered Azu to summon all the zombies and zombie kings. Tomorrow morning, we're going to wipe out the Xiangjiang base. The next morning, I led 100,000 zombies to raid their stronghold.
I immediately gave the command to Azu and the others.
Devour everyone, except for the awakeners. Soon the perimeter walls were toppled by those high-level zombies. Entitled zombies instantly swarmed into the base. While I was giving orders, Long Yun and her female soldiers moved out on their own. I hadn't intended to bring them along, but after hearing what the fat guy said yesterday about the Xiangjiang base planning to ambush a military unit, she briefed me and insisted on coming. She simply refused to stay behind. They suspected the target was the commando team sent to extract them. As they entered a warehouse, I prepared to head into another building. But then, Azu approached and told me that he could sense the presence of numerous awakeners. Hearing this, I was instantly exhilarated. My primary reason for attacking the Xiangjiang base was those 20+ awakeners. With these nourishing blood meals, I might even be able to evolve a few more zombie kings. Keep in mind, a zombie king is equivalent to a tier 7 awakener,
and in these early stages of the apocalypse, even tier 2 ability users are rare.
Guided by Azu, we quickly arrived at the underground parking lot. To prevent any sneak attacks, I immediately activated my domain. Everything within a 100-meter radius was now under my perception. Before long, I ran into Long Yun and his team. As soon as I saw them, I called out to stop them, and told them that I could help. As I entered the basement, my domain had already completely covered the area. I now had a crystal clear view of everything in the entire basement. The 100+ soldiers they were looking for were currently tied up. Besides them, a group of
Bioscientists from Sakura country were conducting experiments. I quickly led the team to the laboratory. But as soon as we entered, we witnessed an infuriating scene. Several men in white coats were holding scalpels, preparing to cut open a little girl's stomach. Before I could even speak, the female soldiers had already charged forward, pointing their guns at the scientists. The Sakura country scientists tried to flee, so I ordered Azu to seize them immediately.
As for the low-level zombies outside,
I also had him summon the high-tier zombies from the area, because besides discovering these beasts from Sakura country, I also sensed many people hiding in the ventilation ducts. Judging by their blood aura, they must be the group of ability users from the Xiangjiang base.
At that moment, Long Yun rescued the soldiers locked in the cages.
I learned that they were a makeshift assault squad, but only their captain knew the specifics of their mission. Their captain was still being held in the glass chamber further inside. We arrived at the glass house, but unexpectedly, Long Yun actually knew this man. He was Long Yun's cousin. The man was also stunned. He hadn't expected that while he came to rescue Long Yun, he would end up being saved by him instead. At that moment, Long Yun began introducing the man to me. But when I heard his name, I was shocked. It was Long Jianguo. At that moment, Long Yun began introducing the man to me. But when I heard his name, I was shocked. It was Long Jianguo. In my past life, there was a legendary military powerhouse by that same name. I immediately asked Long Yun, is your cousin's awakened power a magnetic ability? After getting his confirmation, I ignored his bewildered look and told him that I could help his cousin become much stronger. In my previous life, Long Jianguo remained weak for 2 years due to incorrect cultivation, staying a weakling until someone gave him the right guidance. Only then did he gradually become one of the strongest in China. Now that I've encountered him before he has reached his prime, it's the perfect time to build a favorable connection. It will also make future dealings with the military much easier. Having spent the last few days with me, Long Yun knew my strength, so he quickly believed my words. After hearing me out, he happily went to find his cousin. At that moment, Azu walked over. He told me he sensed the presence of awakeners in the ventilation ducts. I remembered those 20 or 30 big fish that I hadn't caught yet. I immediately had Azu order the zombies to block all exits, preventing those awakeners from escaping. Then, I gave Azu the exact location where they were hiding. Quickly, Azu arrived in front of a fire cabinet, and to smash the red metal cabinet with a single punch, a man and a woman hiding inside were instantly shaken out. Before they could even react, Azu directly broke their limbs. Then he stepped over to the vent and threw a heavy punch. Soon, the remaining 19 awakeners were forced out as well. Once they fell, the look of panic on their faces suddenly vanished, because they realized that besides a few humans, there was only a single zombie present. The other 19 people all unleashed their abilities to blast toward Azu, but I stood aside and didn't make a move, because I also wanted to use this opportunity to test Azu's strength, to see if he could handle 19 awakeners at once.
As expected of a zombie king comparable to a rank 7 awakener, the attacks from these low-level ability users couldn't scratch Azu at all. In an instant, 6 people had their limbs crippled by him.
Immediately, the remaining 13 were so terrified that they lost the courage to resist
and tried to flee directly outside.
But they were no match for Azu's speed, and soon,
The rest of the group was completely incapacitated by Azu.
meanwhile, Long Yun and the others watching nearby were utterly stunned. They never expected the Zombie King's combat power to be so formidable. They realized they must notify their superiors never to offend me. At that moment, I slowly walked over. I found that those lying on the ground were all the Xiangjiang rebels from my previous life. Watching them roll and howl on the ground, I felt a sudden surge of satisfaction. I almost died at their hands in my past life. Now it's finally time for revenge. So I immediately ordered Azu to summon 10 high-level zombies with strength nearing that of a zombie king. But I didn't let them swarm in all at once, because I wanted them to feed on the victims one by one. Only then can I maximize the chances of creating more zombie kings. However, after consuming these awakeners, only 4 new zombie kings were produced. While the advanced zombies were still evolving, I didn't stay idle. Instead, I continued forward with Azu, as there were still several ability users ahead, including that Huaxing traitor, Xu Ze, and the local boss, Feng Shaofeng. Soon, under Azu's relentless assault, the remaining ability users were all forced out of hiding. The moment Xu Ze saw me, he immediately knelt and begged for mercy. Having seen me control the zombies, they realized I was the one with the blood tribe lineage that Menard had put a bounty on. He was no match for me at all. Ignoring him, I simply turned and ordered Azu to kill him on the spot. But just as I turned my head, Xu Ze suddenly drew a dagger and lunged toward me with a desperate burst of speed. But he was still too slow. Azu sent him flying with a single slap. He landed right in front of a feeding high-level zombie in the distance, followed instantly by a blood-curdling scream. As for Feng Shaofeng, he truly lived up to his reputation as one of the 10 strongest in my past life. He immediately stepped forward, leading the remaining men in a charge against me. It seemed they knew they couldn't beat the Zombie King, so capturing me was their only hope for survival. Seeing me under attack, Azu was about to intervene, but I just smiled calmly watching them rush toward me. With a single assault, my domain instantly enveloped the entire area. I hadn't made a move yet because I wanted to see Feng Shaofeng's ability,
as I had only heard rumors about it in my previous life.
Seeing that he had already summoned his dragon soul, I acted immediately. However, I still underestimated him. A sudden sharp pain hit my head, nearly making me collapse. I finally realized his ability was a soul attack. I'm glad I expanded my domain. They are moving so slowly now that I have plenty of time to react. Now fully awake, I never gave him another chance. I lunged straight at him and broke his limbs. Then, moving like a phantom through the crowd, I quickly finished off the remaining ability users. The onlookers were stunned once again because in their eyes, it seemed I only flickered for a moment before everyone collapsed. Ignoring the shocked crowd, I approached Feng Shaofeng to examine those two dragon souls. After careful inspection, they weren't physical entities but spirits. But after studying them for a long time, I still didn't know how to control them. So I simply stored them in my space and ignored them for now. Then I fed the remaining ability users to those zombies. After devouring the last one, another zombie king evolved. Now, I have a total of 14 zombie kings. Azu came to report that everyone at the Xiangjiang base had been consumed, and they had also discovered a massive cache of supplies. After storing all the supplies into my space, I prepared to head back. To my surprise, Long Yun didn't leave with Long Jianguo. Instead, he insisted on following me back. After a brief talk, I realized he actually wanted to play matchmaker for me and his sister. It seems he thinks I'm powerful and wants to exploit my strength for his own ends, or recruit me into the military. I didn't call him out and agreed to his request. However, I didn't allow them inside the supermarket. Instead, I had his brother stay in the nearby residential compound. The next day, after discussing some matters with me, Long Yun and Long Jianguo left upon receiving orders from above. With nothing else to do, I started checking the news. Since it's still the early days of the apocalypse, the network hasn't completely collapsed, so I can still keep track of the outside world. Only then did I realize that the news of me wiping out the Xiangjiang base had actually gone viral online. Numerous organizations are now offering bounties for any information on me. It seems the Xiangjiang base had surveillance cameras as well. But with 14 zombie kings under my command, I don't care who comes looking for trouble. As I continued browsing, a particular post caught my eye. Someone was online trying to trade mutant animal crystal cores for food. It seems most people still don't realize the value of these cores, but I know they can drastically enhance an awakener's strength. Though there's a high risk of your body exploding, this is the apocalypse. Fortune favors the bold, while the timid starve. Many are willing to risk it all just to gain power. Later on, the prices for high-level crystal cores will skyrocket. I should take this opportunity to hoard as many as possible. I immediately contacted the seller and settled on a meeting spot. Before long, I arrived at the gates of the Dianjiang International Community. As I stepped out of the car, a certain person came to mind, a man named Uncle Yi who saved my life in my previous world. Long before I awakened my space ability, that encounter was the reason I survived the apocalypse. Before we parted ways, Uncle Yi mentioned that he lived in this neighborhood while I was lost in thought. A beautiful woman in a police uniform approached and asked if I was the buyer. Once I confirmed, we proceeded with the trade. In the end, I scored 6 crystals for just 12 packs of instant noodles. Just as she was about to leave, I called out to her. She looks like she's a resident here, so she must be quite familiar with the people in this complex. I can ask her if she knows where Uncle Yi is. In my past life, Uncle Yi not only saved me but also gave me plenty of food when we parted. Later, when I tried to find him to repay his kindness, he was nowhere to be found. Now that I've been reborn, I must find him. However, just as I finished describing Uncle Ye's appearance and abilities, this beautiful policewoman actually knew him, and judging by her guarded expression, they must be quite close. So I told her the truth. After learning that Uncle Ye was my savior, she breathed a sigh of relief and led me into the residential complex. However, while climbing the stairs, I noticed she was actually out of breath. She isn't even an awakener, so where did she get those crystals? I voiced my doubts, and through her explanation, I realized that Uncle Ye was actually her father. The crystals were all obtained by Uncle Ye. Just as I was about to ask where her father was, a middle-aged woman opened the door. When I looked inside, I saw Uncle Ye's funeral portrait displayed in the living room. I was stunned. I didn't expect to have missed him again. While I was wondering about her father, a middle-aged woman opened the door. When I looked inside, I saw Uncle Ye's funeral portrait in the living room. I stood there frozen, realizing I was too late after all. Just then, the beautiful officer tapped me, snapping me back to reality. They then invited me into the house. After talking, I got the general gist of the situation. Uncle Ye had just passed away yesterday. The police woman's name is Yebing, and the middle-aged woman is her mother. But just as I was about to ask about the cause of Uncle Ye's death, a sudden knock came from the door. Yebing went to answer it. I figured it was just a neighbor visiting, so I didn't bother looking. But before long, I heard Yebing let out a cry of alarm from the doorway. So I rushed over immediately. It turned out they were his neighbors, seeing him bring back so much food today. They wanted him to hand over half of it. When the man saw me come out, instead of backing down, he and several others charged forward, ready to loot the supply. But I'm no holy mother now. I drew my pistol and gunned down the man in front. The remaining 4 immediately knelt and begged for mercy. But I gave them no quarter and killed them all on the spot. I thought Yebing and her family would be terrified of me after this. But to my surprise, they didn't flinch at all. In fact, Mother Yi was full of praise for my actions. It seems these thoughts have been tormenting them for a long time. I then asked Yebing about the circumstances of Uncle Ye's death, since his teleportation ability should have made him nearly impossible to kill. With tears in her eyes, Yebing told me everything. After Uncle Ye awakened his ability, his sense of justice as a police officer remained as strong as ever. He frequently led the neighbors out to scavenge for supplies. But yesterday, while out searching for food, they ran into a gang of criminals. In the end, only her father managed to escape. But by the time he got home, Uncle Ye was barely clinging to life. After explaining what had happened and warning them not to seek revenge, he passed away. Hearing her story and seeing the rage and grief on her face, I sighed. Since the apocalypse began, many have completely lost their humanity. Murder and robbery have become commonplace. No wonder I couldn't find him in my past life. He died shortly after we parted. Even though he's gone, I must still repay the debt of gratitude I owe him. I immediately took out several firearms to give to Yebing and her family for protection. Just then, Mother Yi, who had gone into the room, stepped back out, and when she did, he seemed like a completely different person. Standing tall, his face was etched with determination, a far cry from the deathly ill state he was in just moments ago. Once again, he asked me how I knew Uncle Ye. But after I answered, Mother Ye abruptly ordered me to leave. Yebing was equally stunned. She expected her mother to invite me for dinner, not kick me out so suddenly. I wasn't offended. I simply handed the gun to Yebing, offered a few polite words of concern, and took my leave. But once back in the car, my doubts began to grow. After I killed the 5 neighbors bullying them, the way Mother Ye looked at me was like she was looking at a son-in-law. Why the sudden change of heart inside? But just as I was lost in thought, I noticed a dozen motorcycles trailing behind me. In the apocalypse, seeing a stray bike is normal, but this many at once, they were clearly up to no good. I drove into a hotel courtyard near the base. Sure enough, the bikes followed me, and moments later, a fat man wielding a machete led the gang inside. They searched the place but couldn't find a soul. As they stood there confused, I watched them mockingly from the second floor. "Are you looking for me?" startled by my voice. They prepared to rush up and hack me down. But the moment they saw the assault rifle in my hands, they scrambled toward the exit in terror. But upon reaching the courtyard, they found themselves face to face with a horde of zombies. Their legs turned to jelly as the realization finally hit them. I had set an ambush, waiting for them to walk right into my trap. I calmly began walking down the stairs. I walked up to the fat guy and started questioning him about why he was tailing me. But the guy was probably scared stiff. He just stood there frozen for a long time without saying a word. Growing impatient, I opened fire and turned him into a sieve. The others finally snapped out of it and fell to their knees with a thud, begging for mercy. Turns out they were lackeys of Pockmark Chen from the Dianjiang International Community. They saw me with a load of food today and figured I must have a massive stash of supplies. So Pockmark Chen sent them to tail me and scope things out. I ignored their pleas after hearing their explanation. While they were still begging, I gave a direct order to the zombie king beside me, telling him to let the ordinary zombies devour every last one of them. Soon, a chorus of agonizing screams rang out from below. The reason I came to this hotel in the first place was because I planned to bring a zombie king back with me. Azu is currently the only one at the base and I'm worried we're short-handed. This area just happens to be the territory of one of the zombie kings under my control. Once the zombies were done feeding, I took him and headed back to the base. Shortly after my return, I received a friend request. To my surprise, it was from Yebing. I'd left my number when I departed earlier, but given her mother's attitude, I didn't think they'd actually add me. I accepted the request immediately. Given what had just happened, I was worried those thugs would try to rob her. I wanted to warn her to watch out for the security guards in her complex. But the moment I sent it, Yebing sent me the exact same warning.
Seeing her message, I couldn't help but smile.
She's just as kind-hearted as her father. I warned her that a zombie tide might hit her neighborhood tonight. Don't go outside, no matter what. Just stay hidden at home. Yebing was understandably confused by my cryptic warning. I didn't offer much explanation, just urged him to trust me. He'll understand soon enough. While I was chatting, Azu happened to return from outside. He told me that 2 zombie kings had been deployed to Dianjiang International. The operation will begin at 5 p.m. sharp. After dealing with Shemazi's thugs today, I immediately devised a plan. Uncle Ye may be gone, but his wife and daughter are still here. To prevent that gang from harming them, I planned to wipe them all out. But while I was waiting at the base, I received another call from Yebing. What left me speechless was that the person speaking was actually Yebing's father. However, upon arriving at the warehouse, I found a blonde young man standing there. The moment that blonde punk saw us, he opened fire. He thought he could blow our heads off right then and there. But his smile vanished in the very next second. I disappeared instantly. By the time I reappeared, I was clutching all the fired bullets in my hand, before the blonde guy could even react. Azu lunged from my side straight at him, instantly crippling all his limbs. Yebing, standing nearby, shouted for me not to kill him. She wanted to do it herself, as he was Ergo, the man who killed her mother. But I simply shook my head at her. I told her I had a better way for her to get revenge once we found Chen Mazi. Having witnessed my power, Yebing now had unwavering faith in me. She agreed immediately, and told me she knew where Chen Mazi was hiding. When the zombies attacked earlier, she saw them flee toward the parking lot. Soon we reached the parking lot entrance, but I sent Azu in alone. After all, a zombie king can track them down by scent in no time. Saves me the energy of activating my domain for a search.
A few minutes later, Azu brought out Chen Mazi and the security guard.
As soon as Chen Mazi saw me, he fell to his knees and begged for mercy. He claimed to know Guilao's secret and would tell me if I spared his life. It turns out he already knew I was a blood tribe lineage awakener. Knowing Guilao might be no match for me, he sold him out immediately. Looking at the kneeling Chen Mazi, I feigned agreement. Apparently Guilao isn't human, he's a zombie. He can constantly switch bodies, and has awakened a special ability that allows him to steal others' abilities by drinking their blood. As a result, Guilao now possesses over a dozen different abilities. He also has an ability called Death Curse. Anyone he wounds will inevitably die, regardless of the injury severity. After hearing Chen Mazi's words, a question crossed my mind. How could he possibly know such a well-guarded secret? Shrinking under my icy gaze, Chen Mazi immediately confessed one of his former subordinates could turn invisible to shadow others, and try to steal supplies from Guilao, but was eventually discovered. Though he narrowly escaped back, he died in the end anyway. He revealed all of this to Chen Mazi just before he passed away. My expression darkened immediately upon hearing this. It seems Guilao is a real threat. I must find a way to eliminate him soon. However, wanting to extract more information, I continued to bait Chen Mazi with false promises, asking if he knew someone called Night God, promising that if he told me, I would let him live. But Chen Mazi shook his head, claiming he had no idea. Just as I was losing hope, Ergo, who was standing nearby, overheard. Hearing that I might spare them, he claimed to have information on the night god. It turns out that man had once approached their boss, Gui Lao, but every time that man appeared, he was cloaked in a black robe and a bamboo hat, so no one has ever seen his face. The boss would occasionally grumble in front of them, saying the man was just a monad reject, yet he still acted high and mighty. But whenever they pressed for more information about the man, Old Gui would refuse to say another word. Argo's words immediately piqued my interest. If even Old Gui is wary of him, what exactly is his ability? Desperate to stay alive, Ergu didn't dare hide a thing. He only knew the man's ability was similar to his boss's clone ability, except the boss's clones were physical, while that man's seemed to be illusions.
After hearing Ergo out, I pressed him further,
demanding to know what other secrets he held. If you tell me everything, I swear to God I'll let you go. Argo knew he had no choice. Seeing my resolve, he agreed. I was secretly thrilled. I hadn't expected him to actually have real intel. It turns out monad operatives had approached their boss and told Old Gui that they had engineered a terrifying mutant, 3 to 4 meters tall, who is impervious to bombs and can easily slaughter 2 tier 6 monsters in seconds. Its strength has already surpassed that of a tier 7 awakener. The only flaw is that in combat mode, it can't distinguish friend from foe. The reason monad created this monster was specifically to target me, a blood tribe awakener. They want to capture me, and they use my blood to mass-produce biochemical soldiers. My expression grew grave as I processed Ergo's words. A monster that even a dozen bombs can't kill? Wouldn't that be invincible? Monad could dominate the world if they produced just a few of them. But what Ergo said next finally gave me a sense of relief. It turns out this specimen was an accidental byproduct of a failed experiment. Monadicore made several subsequent attempts but never managed to replicate it. However, the Field family values this monster highly. They even dispatched their family's third princess to oversee it, and she brought several top-tier experts with her. The tier 6 beast used to test the biomonster was captured by them. I was stunned by Ergo's report. Most of the people are barely at tier 2 right now, yet they have so many experts above tier 6. I need to reassess the true power of the Field family. To think they have so many experts above tier 6, I really must re-evaluate the Field family's strength. Looking at the men on the ground who had nothing left to tell, I turned to Yebing and told him it was finally time for his revenge. The moment they heard me, the smiles on their faces vanished. They cursed at me, screaming that I had no honor, but I ignored them and simply ordered Azu to devour them. I watched with cold mockery as they screamed. In this apocalypse, keeping your word to people like them is the height of stupidity. As I watched Azu devour them alive, a look of cathartic relief finally washed over Yebing's face. Once Azu was done, I prepared to head back to the base with Yebing. But at the complex entrance, I noticed someone was actually attacking zombies.
I was genuinely perplexed.
Ordinary people run for their lives from zombies. Even awakeners would typically choose to flee when faced with such numbers.
To think someone would actively hunt zombies right now.
But my domain only reaches 100 meters. They're too far away,
so I can't tell what's really going on.
I immediately ordered Azu to investigate. Shortly after he left, the 2 zombie kings I'd sent to Kingsha community returned and reported
that most of the survivors in the compound had been devoured by them.
Many low-level zombies that gorged on flesh and blood have evolved as well. Hearing their report, I was thrilled, but suddenly, gunfire rang out in the distance. I immediately sensed that something was wrong. A group had already arrived earlier, and now another one showed up. This was clearly orchestrated, so I decided to go see for myself. But when I got closer, I discovered there were over 30 ability users. Why did so many ability users show up at once? But I wasn't worried. In fact, I was delighted, because with so many ability users I could evolve a few more zombie kings. The 2 zombie kings behind me also had glinting eyes, so I immediately sent them to deal with these people. As soon as I finished, the 2 zombie kings leaped and charged at the group, and soon arrived outside the residential complex. At that moment, Azu, whom I had sent out, returned with 100,000 zombies. The group of ability users panicked immediately. They were already struggling, and now with so many more arriving, they immediately started to flee, but they didn't get far before being blocked by the 2 zombie kings. Seeing the 2 zombie kings, the group of ability users immediately began to unleash their abilities. Fireballs, vine entrapment, and the stone manipulation. A barrage of attacks landed on the zombie kings, but these level 2 ability users were too weak to pose any threat to the zombie kings. The 2 zombie kings were like gods of war. In an instant, half of the ability users were swatted away.
Seeing this, the remaining awakeners
realized they were no match for the zombie king and immediately scattered, hoping to escape.
But Azu arrived just in time.
Surrounded by a sea of zombies, scattering was useless for these awakeners.
It only made them easier to pick off.
Before long, their limbs were broken and they were tossed before me. But watching the zombie kings return, I wasn't pleased. I noticed that for the most part, they were still relying on brute force against even stronger awakeners. They might not stand a chance at all. In my past life, a single zombie king was a dominant overlord. They mastered all kinds of combat techniques. I must find a way to awaken their potential, to maintain the upper hand in the future. But as I was thinking, I noticed something unusual. A dark shadow appeared within my domain, moving forward unimpeded. The surrounding zombies seemed oblivious to him. Just like Sauli, whom I killed before. He could hide in the shadows, and he was heading straight for me. Lucky the first awakened my domain, or he might have actually taken me out. I see now. The commotion caused by those groups earlier was all to lure me closer so this shadow could take the chance to kill me. Murderous intent flared in my eyes. Instantly, the flow of time within my domain slowed down. For safety, I didn't rush over immediately. Instead, I tossed the zombie in front of the shadow to observe him. I soon figured out his ability. It's different from Kaowuli's. Saul Lee had to reveal himself to attack, but this guy can strike while remaining in stealth. Whatever he attaches himself to becomes immobilized and cannot move, allowing him to instantly teleport to its side. Having figured out his ability, I immediately lunged at the dark figure, smashing him right out of the shadows and shattering his limb. Only then did I get a clear look at him. He was a middle-aged man wearing a ghost face mask. It seems this is the old ghost Argo mentioned. I threw him to the ground and began my interrogation. I was quite interested in the secrets he held. But Old Ghost was dismissive of my questions, even mocking me, claiming that if I weren't so fast, I'd be dead already. Seeing his arrogance, I simply raised my gun and fired a shot into his lower body. Now I had assumed he wouldn't feel a thing, since Chamazi mentioned before that he could swap bodies. Aside from his head, nothing else was truly his. I thought he'd be immune to pain, but to my surprise, as soon as the bullet hit, he clutched his crotch and began to howl in agony. I looked down at him coldly. If you don't start answering my questions, the next one goes through your head. Witnessing my ruthlessness, Old Ghost was utterly terrified. He immediately dropped to his knees and begged for mercy. It turns out he had awakened an evil spirit physique. He had been bitten by zombies back when he was weak, but instead of turning, his body simply began to rot continuously, which triggered a new ability. He could constantly swap bodies, and by drinking the blood of awakeners, he could stall the decay and replicate their powers. His explanation lined up with what Chamazi had told me. It seemed he was telling the truth. Then, I began questioning him for intel on the Night God. From his answers, I realized they had only crossed paths about 10 days ago. Guilao originally planned to kill the Night God and drink his blood, but instead of killing the Night God, he was captured by him. Furthermore, after hearing Guilao out, the Night God voluntarily gave him his blood to drink. But in the end, not only did he fail to replicate the abilities, he was enslaved by the Night God, becoming his puppet. The Night God can sense him at any moment, and can even directly control his body at close range. Hearing this, I was genuinely surprised. Guilao's abilities were already formidable, yet the Night God could still suppress him. It seems his strength is truly immense. I continued to press for information about the Night God, and Guilao, fearing for his life, spilled everything he knew. Only after becoming a puppet did he learn that the Night God was a monarch experimental subject. But he was a failure. Discarded in the sewers. Unexpectedly, he ended up awakening both phantom and puppet art. Aside from that, Guilao didn't know much else. So I started asking about Monard. After all, the Night God is just one man, while Monard is my ultimate enemy. However, Guilao didn't know the location of Monard's stronghold, only that they had sent a woman over. I frowned immediately after hearing his words. This information is useless. I already know all of this. I prepared to kill him, but Guilao immediately begged for mercy, claiming that if I spared him, he would tell me how to obtain his powers. But I wasn't tempted at all. Guilao's aura has always disgusted me, and I have no desire to become a freak like him, neither human nor ghost. The next second, I shot him directly in the head, then immediately took gasoline from my space and incinerated his body. Guilao was too bizarre. He could even switch bodies. To be safe, I decided that burning him to ashes was the only way. With all that settled, the zombie kings I'd sent out earlier had just returned. I was thrilled after hearing their report. This time, we captured nearly 70 to 80 awakeners in total. That's enough to evolve a few more zombie kings for my legion. Plus, the zombie king at the Duamu site also discovered a massive cache of supplies and firearms. I had Azu lead them to evolve right here. Meanwhile, I headed to the Duamu factory to collect the supply. After finishing that, I didn't head back to the base. Instead, I decided to go out and scavenge for some beds. The base has way more people now, and I haven't stockpiled any beds yet. So I'm heading out today to stock up. I soon arrived at the city's largest furniture market. Not long after entering, I encountered a massive golden mantis. It was followed by a swarm of tiny cockroaches. It looked like this cockroach was injured, likely by other awakeners. I didn't care. A free crystal core handed to me on a platter? I'd be a fool not to take it. So I activated my domain and shattered its head with a single punch. A golden crystal core immediately appeared beside the corpse. I dispelled my domain and stored the crystal core in my space. But just as I was about to leave, 3 blonde, blue-eyed foreigners suddenly burst in, leading a group of Chinese people. Upon seeing the insect corpse on the ground, they immediately raised their guns. Aiming at me, they demanded I hand over the crystal core.
But I didn't answer them.
Instead, I smiled and asked if they were from the Monard Company. They didn't expect me to be so arrogant, so they opened fire on me immediately. They thought they would blow my head off with one shot, but I suddenly vanished right before their eyes. The next second, a dark shadow darted among them, and all their limbs were instantly snapped. Only then did I finally reveal myself to them. The group on the ground was paralyzed with fear. They never expected to encounter such a powerful awakener, wiping them all out in the blink of an eye. I turned to the one-eyed man and questioned him again. Were they really from the Monard Corporation? Terrified this time, the man confessed everything immediately. It turned out they were awakeners hired by Monard, all taking orders from the third princess of the Field family. They came today specifically to capture that mutated mantis, to provide it to Monad for biochemical experiments. The third princess, mentioned yet again. I decided to find a chance to take her out. She's clearly been targeting me lately. I immediately demanded the location of Monad's stronghold, but he was just a mercenary and knew nothing. Just as I was losing patience, he told me those foreigners nearby would know. They were part of the third princess's inner circle. I turned around intending to question them, but before I could even approach, those foreigners collapsed dead. I checked and found they had all committed suicide by swallowing poison. I didn't expect these foreigners to have so much backbone. I always thought they'd just surrender when faced with death. It seems the third princess is quite capable. As for the remaining mercenaries, they weren't awakeners, so I just shot them all dead. After collecting more beds, Yebing and I drove back to the base. En route, I received a message from someone wanting to trade resources. After getting crystal cores from Ye Bing this morning, I posted an ad online. I posted photos of food, claiming that anyone with crystal cores could trade them with me for food. And just now someone contacted me saying they had plenty of cores. So I quickly reached an agreement with him and settled on a meeting spot. But the location surprised me. It was actually Pujiang College. Immediately, a name flashed through my mind. Professor Sun Tao of Pujiang University. This man is far more formidable than the foreigner I just killed. He can also absorb the abilities of others. But unlike that guy, he doesn't need to drink blood, he drains them directly like an energy vampire. Waste this power, he eventually became the second person after Feng Shaofeng to reach the elite rank 9. The problem is he's a psychopath who kills for sport. And he keeps a monstrous dog that feeds exclusively on human flesh. By the end, that dog could actually go toe-to-toe with rank 9 powerhouses. Since I'm heading there anyway, I might as well eliminate them. After all, that lot from Pujiang College looted quite a bit of my stuff in my previous life. But upon returning to the base, I found Ling Qingya and the others lecturing Xiaoxue. It turns out she's been in frequent contact with her old classmates lately. Even though she hadn't revealed our secrets, Ling Qingya still felt it was a security risk. In this apocalypse, people are unpredictable. Even her aunt killed her own sister for meat, let alone Xiaoxue's classmates. Besides, Xiaoxue hasn't awakened her ability yet, and hasn't faced real danger. If she gets tricked into leaking my secrets, it'll be a massive headache. Hearing this, I walked straight up to Xiaoxue, took her phone, and skimmed through the messages. She didn't reveal anything, but these people are clearly up to no good. In the middle of an apocalypse, their level of concern is suspiciously excessive. They kept asking where she lived, claiming they wanted to bring her food. Their motives are clearly not pure. After handing the phone back, I told her she's coming with me to Pujiang College tomorrow. I want her to experience the true brutality of this post-apocalyptic world. Luo Yoyo and the others at the base haven't yet experienced the cruelty of the apocalypse. So, I plan to take everyone from the base to Pujiang Academy. After all, they can't stay hidden under my protection forever. To survive, they must experience the reality of life and death combat. It just so happens that we seized the foreigner's base yesterday, along with a massive cache of firearms from Monard. I had Shen Bingqian and the others each arm themselves with a machine gun, and showed them how to use them. Once everything was ready, we set off for Pujiang Academy. Before long, we arrived in the vicinity of the academy. For safety, I activated my domain, and sure enough, I soon detected many people lying in ambush around the school. At that moment, our 2 vehicles were the only ones on the road. It's clear that if these people weren't sent by Xiaoxue's classmate, then they were sent by the person selling the crystals. So we drove around the academy for a perimeter check, only to find over 100 people lying in wait, and many of them were armed with guns. A mocking smile played on my lips. They think I'm easy prey. Little do they know they'll soon be nothing but zombie fodder. Now that I've scouted the situation, I had Xiaoxue drive straight to the school's main gate. I messaged the crystal trader, and then Xiaoxue and I stepped out of the car together. 2 women were already standing at the entrance. From Xiaoxue's introduction, I learned their identities. One was her classmate Xiaomi, but she didn't recognize the other one. Xiaoxue quickly began chatting with her classmate. But after a moment, Luo Yoyo stepped forward and urged Xiaoxue to hurry and get her things. She was worried her cousin might talk too much and let something slip. So Xiaoxue's classmate beckoned us to come inside the school. But I shook my head, indicating there was no rush. I was still waiting for someone to arrive. Just as I finished speaking, a woman walked out of the school. After a brief exchange, I realized she was the person I was supposed to trade crystals with. To my surprise, she also knew Xiaoxue. She was the student council president, Xiao Yun. Without wasting any more words, I got straight to the point and asked how many crystal cores she had. Xiao Yun told me she only brought 2 with her, and the rest were in their dorm. If I wanted them, I'd have to go into the school to see, but I didn't follow her in immediately. Instead, I asked about the situation at their school. She didn't think much of it, assuming I was just being cautious. So she told me everything about their setup. But after hearing her out, I was a bit disappointed. There were only about 500 people here. That wasn't nearly enough. They wouldn't even be a snack for the zombies I brought. Then I started asking about Sun Tao. That was my primary reason for coming here today. But just as I spoke, a middle-aged man wearing glasses approached. It was Sun Tao. A middle-aged man wearing glasses walked over. It was indeed Sun Tao. He was accompanied by several henchmen, with that massive dog by his side. As soon as the dog saw us, it started barking at us uncontrollably. Sun Tao's expression shifted instantly, and he barked out, "He's here to kill me." Immediately, those lying in ambush rushed out. In an instant, a group of armed men surrounded us. Facing over 100 people, I didn't panic, but I was deeply puzzled. How did Sun Tao know I intended to kill him? But the reason soon became clear. Thinking we had no chance of escape, Sun Tao began to taunt us arrogantly, calling us useless trash. His dog barks wildly whenever it senses someone harboring murderous intent. Hearing this, I was slightly taken aback. As expected of a mutated beast that can rival a 9th-tier powerhouse. This ability is the ultimate survival tool. At that moment, Xiaoxue's classmate Xiao Yun ran over and told Sun Tao he's the one who wants to buy the crystals. Upon hearing this, Sun Tao burst into a gleeful laugh. He figured I must be loaded with supplies. He then ordered his men to take us into the campus for questioning. Xiaoxue's classmates finally revealed their true, ugly colors, trying to goad Xiaoxue into betraying me, urging her to reveal where our supplies were hidden. They promised that if she served Sun Tao well, she'd never want for food or water again. In that moment, Xiaoxue finally saw her classmates for who they really were. Having learned the cruelty of the apocalypse, she flatly rejected Xiaoming, loudly denouncing them as shameless traitors. Seeing that her words weren't working, Xiaoming prepared to teach Xiaoxue a lesson. But in the next second, Azu let out a long, piercing howl toward the sky. Instantly, the roars of countless zombies echoed from all around Pujiang School. Before arriving, I had already ordered the nearby zombie kings to lie in ambush. They were to swarm in the moment they heard my signal. It was only then that the group surrounding us realized that the 2 people behind me were actually zombies. Previously, Azu and the others were concealed in coats and hats. They had mistaken them for my underlings.
Once they saw their true faces, they immediately opened fire.
They started shooting at us, but Azu and the others shielded us instantly. As bullets struck them, the sound of metallic clashing rang out. But the zombie kings were completely unharmed. Azu and his pack lunged at the group, beating into them directly. In an instant, 2 men were drained of their blood. At this moment, Sun Tao finally snapped back to his senses. Suspecting that I was the Blood Tribe Awakener, he ordered his dog to tear us apart while activating his own ability. A rope formed of black energy lashed out toward me. At that moment, a smug grin spread across his face. He thought that without the Zombie King's protection, I would soon be his prisoner. But his smile froze instantly as I suddenly vanished from the spot. The next second, I appeared before the massive dog and threw a punch. The black dog was as fragile as tofu. Its head exploded instantly. Sun Tao's jaw nearly hit the ground in shock. He knew exactly how powerful his hound was. Ordinary blades and guns couldn't even pierce its hide. He never expected it to be killed by a single punch from me. Only now did he realize why I dared to bring so many beauties with me, and why I had posted those photos of food online. He turned to flee back into the school without a second thought, but I gave him no chance. I teleported instantly and appeared right in front of him. I shattered his limbs in a flash and tossed him aside like trash. Meanwhile, Azu was also wrapping things up. The Awakeners and gunmen had all been devoured by them, and the zombies lying in ambush nearby had also closed in. I immediately ordered them to search the school. At the gate, only Xiaoxue's 2 classmates remained. The woman named Xiaoming was now kneeling on the ground, paralyzed with fear. She kept begging Xiaoxue for mercy, claiming they were forced to deceive her. But after the recent ordeal, Xiaoxue felt no sympathy for them whatsoever, only cold resentment. But I felt that wasn't enough, so I took a gun from my space and handed it to her. The apocalypse is a dog-eat-dog world. If you want to survive, you must learn to kill. Xiaoxue didn't disappoint me. She closed her eyes and pulled the trigger, gunning Xiaoming down. He also wiped out the few classmates nearby. Soon every ordinary person around was devoured by zombies. Only Sun Tao and his group of awakeners remained. But just as I was about to interrogate Sun Tao, Azu had already devoured them.
It seems a level 4 awakener like Sun Tao was a huge temptation for him.
Maybe Azu will evolve again after consuming them. However, even after a while, he showed no signs of change. So, after scavenging all the supplies, I led them toward the city outskirts. Just as we were nearing the outskirts, Azu, from the back of the pig, tapped on the rear window. Turns out, they usually hunt mutated beasts in the peri-urban areas. But they generally don't stray too far from the city. There are many high-level mutated beasts out there, and even the risk of a beast type. After hearing Azu's warning, I decided to stop and set up camp here. I chose a nearby village as the training ground for Ling Qingya and the others. Since most mutated beasts in villages are former livestock, their strength is a perfect match for their current levels. More importantly, consuming the meat of these mutated animals can strengthen one's physique. In my past life, someone even ate a rooster and instantly jumped 5 levels in strength.
That was because that rooster had awakened a trace of Phoenix bloodline through atavism.
Now they can gather meat while training, allowing them to adapt to the apocalypse and boost their power quickly. Soon, led by Azu, Ling Qingya and the group reached the village. But once inside, they found it deathly quiet, no living soul, and not a single zombie. I sensed something was off and immediately expanded my domain. Within 100 meters, not even an insect could be found. Suddenly, a shrill bird song came from afar, so piercing it made our ears ache. Ling Qingya and the others all crouched to the ground in pain. But thanks to my domain, I remained unaffected. I didn't bother intervening though. The purpose of this trip was to train them. So after the bird song faded, I ordered them to continue. But we didn't get far. A flock of birds suddenly filled the sky, so dense they were countless. I got excited instantly. I had actually stumbled upon a beast tide. In my past life, whether it was a beast tide or a corpse tide, there was always a powerful entity behind them, in control. That bird call just now was clearly commanding these birds to attack us. Soon the flock swooped down, rushing toward Ling Qingya and the others. Faced with such a swarm, Ling Qingya and the others immediately opened fire. But there were simply too many. Soon, Ling Qingya and the others sustained injuries. But I didn't intervene. These birds aren't very strong. They only sustain superficial wounds. This situation was perfect for them.
Sure enough, they didn't disappoint me.
Under Shen Bingqian's direction, they formed a defensive circle, back to back, and launched a methodical counterattack. Combined with Shen Bingqian's ice ability, they should be able to take care of these birds soon. But just as they were about to win, a giant bird suddenly swooped down from the sky. It spat a fireball directly at Shen Bingqian and the others. I had been observing from behind, and upon seeing this giant bird, I immediately activated my domain, instantly immobilizing the colorful giant bird. I crouched down, instantly charged up, and leaped into the air, jumping 6 or 7 meters high. I grabbed the bird by its neck. After landing, I took a closer look and was stunned. This wasn't a bird at all. It was a rooster, though its wings were long and its feathers vibrantly multicolored. Its head and claws still resemble those of a rooster. Is this the same mutated rooster from my past life? At that moment, I couldn't help but laugh. You see, Humans risk their bodies exploding if they consume animal crystals.
But Beast King meat is edible for ordinary people and can even enhance their physique.
These atavistic animals are far more precious than crystal cores.
But as I was celebrating, the rooster actually spat fire at me.
Luckily, my reflexes were fast enough. I jerked its head aside just in time to avoid the flames. Furious, I delivered a single powerful slap, shattering its head, then stored its crystal core in my space. With the giant bird dead, the rest of the flock scattered. I ordered Ling Qingya and the others to keep moving, but before long, they ran into trouble again. A man with a hairy face and his gang blocked their path. The group intercepted them. They pointed their guns and threatened them. Don't move, or we'll shoot you dead right here. But Azu ignored them completely and charged straight forward. Seeing this, the group immediately opened fire, but there was no expected blood splatter. Instead, only a metallic clanging sound rang out. They realized instantly that Azu was invulnerable. They immediately backed away and turned their guns toward Ling Qingya and the others. Azu stopped. While he was invulnerable as a Lion King, Ling Qingya and the others weren't. Just as a stalemate formed, my voice drifted over. Whoever dares to shoot dies. Hearing the sudden voice, the hairy-faced man jumped in fright. He had assumed the beast tide had already killed me. Actually, I was just hiding nearby, but I kept my domain active, observing the situation. However, my shout of warning had little effect. Once they realized what was happening, they moved to attack, but in the next second, my figure vanished.
When I reappeared, the guns in their hands were already in mine.
They were stunned, never expecting me to be so fast. They wondered why I hadn't killed them, but they soon understood. I was going to use them as combat practice for Lin Qingya and the others. Lin Qingya and the girls instantly unleashed their abilities. Shen Bingqian unleashed her frost skills, freezing a dozen men in an instant. Lin Qingya's winged blades made quick work of them. Luo Youyou and Qin Yan also showed perfect teamwork. Luo Youyou trapped a man in a bubble, while Qin Yan telekinetically drove a dagger into his heart. Soon the entire group was wiped out by Lin Qingya and her team, leaving only the hairy-faced man alive. I spared him only to squeeze some intel out of him. To save his own skin, the man spilled everything he knew. It turned out they were the Night God's henchmen, out searching for Blood Tribe Awakeners. But seeing so many beautiful women, they let their greed take over. Hearing this, I knew I had to deal with the Night God as soon as possible. It's never good to have someone constantly targeting you, so I immediately demanded the Night God's location. But the man didn't know exactly where he was, as the Night God had gone into hiding to avoid retaliation. However, he told me several of the Night God's frequent hideouts. Among them, the Dehui pharmaceutical factory was their contact point with Monad. After he finished, I immediately called for Azu, have them raise these strongholds to the ground, and capture every awakener inside. After making the arrangements, I took Ling Qingya and the others back to the base. A full day of combat training has brought them significant progress. They've mastered the basics of team coordination. Now, I need to keep pushing their strengths to the next level. I immediately brought out the rooster from today. Eating it should give their power a massive boost. Soon, a massive all-chicken feast was served. The savory aroma of chicken instantly filled the entire base, and could even be smelled from outside. But just as we were about to dig in, I spotted a dark figure at the main gate, attempting to scale the wall. As soon as the figure climbed over, a patrolling zombie king charged toward him. Due to the darkness and the heavy-coated ward, the intruder didn't realize a zombie was rushing him. Seeing someone approach, he immediately activated his ability. In an instant, the figure split into 4 identical clones. The zombie king couldn't tell which one was the original, so it swung its arms in a wide arc, but the strikes passed right through. They were all mere after images. The real figure behind the zombie king seized the chance to strike with a dagger. He thought it would be a lethal blow, only to find that no matter how hard he pushed, he couldn't pierce the skin. Before he could react, the zombie king delivered a crushing punch. The figure was sent flying 7 or 8 meters away. Terror struck as he hit the ground. He never expected his opponent to be this formidable. Realizing he was completely outmatched, he tried to flee instantly, but the zombie king gave him no opening. The next second, a blood-curdling scream pierced the courtyard. The zombie king snapped the dark figure's limbs like twigs. Just then, the courtyard lights flickered on, and I stepped out from my room, looking down at the figure in the bamboo hat writhing on the ground. And judging by the clone ability he just used, this person must be the Night God I've been looking for. I asked if he was the Night God, but upon hearing my question, the shadow remained silent, his face only showing shock. I pulled a gun directly from my space storage, and without a word, I fired a shot right into his thigh. Finally realizing how ruthless I was, he immediately began to beg for mercy. It turned out he didn't even know who I was. He just caught the scent of chicken, and heard several women's voices coming from inside. So he decided to check it out. His explanation caught me by surprise. I thought he was targeting me, but he had just stumbled in by accident, unaware that I was an awakener of the Blood Tribe lineage. I began questioning him about Monad, but surprisingly, even he didn't know Monad's current whereabouts. He had only sent his men to track them down. Realizing he had no more useful information to offer, I didn't wait for him to beg again and just shot him in the head. But fearing he might swap bodies like that foreigner, I took out some gasoline and burned his corpse. Once done, I went back to finish my chicken. Waking up the next day, I found that my domain had expanded once more, reaching a radius of 150 meters. It seems that chicken really did the trick. My strength has significantly increased. But just as I was celebrating, I sensed Azu and the others returning. And to my surprise, he had brought back a young woman with him. I went straight to the courtyard. Upon seeing me, Azu immediately reported the situation to me. Following my orders, they had wiped out several of Night God's bases, and captured all the ability users there. However, while searching one of the bases, they found a girl. Azu and his men knew I had taken in many beautiful girls, so they brought her back intending to offer her to me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at their words. But what surprised me even more was that Azu seemed to have changed up. His tone and gestures were more like those of a normal human. From Azu's explanation, I learned that not only did he consume the rooster's crystal core yesterday, but he also ate plenty of flesh later. He has evolved once again. I was thrilled to hear this on Azu's current level is something I never even witnessed in my previous life. After all, the strongest being in my past life was the Zombie King. With Azu now, I'm essentially invincible. But while I was still savoring the thought, the girl Azu brought back actually begged me, stating that if I would avenge her, she would pay any price. Upon questioning her, I found out that the shelter on Rifeng Street had been seized by islanders. They were pillaging, murdering, and capturing many women there. Her grandfather was killed by those islanders while trying to protect her. She had barely managed to escape. Hearing her story, a wave of resentment surged within me.
There's nothing Chinese people loathe more than those islanders.
Before the apocalypse, Hujiang's themed street was a popular hotspot, and many islanders even treated it like their own backyard. To think they'd start looting everywhere once the apocalypse hit. I immediately ordered Azu to summon the nearby zombies, ready to wipe out that themed street right now. We soon arrived at the residential complex where Wenwen lived.
Meanwhile, Azu arrived with several zombie kings,
leading a horde of hundreds of thousands of zombies from the area. I immediately ordered Azu to surround the entire complex, ensuring no living creature could escape.
An hour later, Azu returned.
He informed me that, following my orders, he had rounded up everyone in the complex. He even brought along several ability users from the neighborhood. Looking at the 4 ability users, I called Wenwen over, so she could identify her enemies for herself, and exact her own revenge. But as soon as Wenwen arrived, one of the captured ability users, a bearded man, began to act like a saint. He exposed all the atrocities committed here by the Japanese, while framing himself as an innocent who had tried to resist. Wenwen completely ignored his plea, and instead asked about a woman named Kai Xiaomei. The bearded man told her that Kai Xiaomei and her grandfather were killed in an explosion last night. Hearing this, Wenwen prepared to pull the trigger and kill him. To save his life, the man started snitching, telling Wenwen who harmed her grandfather and the others, exposing the dark deeds of almost everyone in the community. After hearing his confession, I realized that most people in this complex had completely lost their humanity, so I summoned Azu and told him to deal with them. Anyone reported for their crimes was to be seized and fed to the zombies. Only the honest and law-abiding would be spared. Azu's intelligence is now comparable to a human's, so this task was easy for him. Everything was soon settled. Then, I fed those ability users to Azu. If Azu can evolve again, he will essentially become a true human. By then, he can manage all the zombies on his own, and I won't have to worry anymore.
While I was still lost in thought,
the zombie kings I sent to the Pleasure Street returned, bringing back a large group of Japanese awakeners. Looking at these nearly 100 awakeners, I finally understood why these islanders were so arrogant. I immediately began to interrogate them, but to my surprise, they started acting tough in front of me. They claimed they weren't afraid to die, and that the Bushido spirit is eternal. Hearing that, I gave them a mocking look, and ordered the zombie king to feed on a few of them first, watching them being drained of their blood in an instant. The rest realized their captors weren't humans, but zombies. Seeing how ruthless my methods were, one of the Japanese men named Shinichi Kudo got terrified and crawled to me to confess everything. I sneered after hearing his story. Just as I thought, those shorties from the island never mean well in China. I wanted more details on their plans, so I kept questioning him. But this Shinichi Kudo claimed he didn't know the rest. Instead, he pointed at a lecherous bald man cowering in the corner. He told me his name was Kameda, and he was the one in charge here. He knew all the secrets best. I looked in the direction he pointed, and sure enough, a wretched middle-aged bald man was trying to hide, but seeing that he had been betrayed, he realized there was no way out. To save his own skin, he began to spill all the intelligence he had. After all, he had already witnessed my methods. It turns out they came for a dragon entrenched in Feilong Mountain. They wanted to use that dragon to breed a large number of beast kings, but their attempts over the past few days always ended in a crushing defeat, because that dragon has already become the king of all beasts, commanding a massive swarm of mutated beasts. I was quite surprised after hearing what he had to say. The dragon on Feilong Mountain, could it be Longyun? The little dragon maiden they mentioned. I continued to interrogate Kameda, wanting to learn more. Unexpectedly, he told me that Sato had already found a way to deal with that dragon. The whole point of returning to Japan was for this very matter, but only Sato knows the specific method. After hearing his words, I knew these people had outlived their usefulness. So I had Azu, who just returned, devour all these Japanese ability users. But Azu only consumed their essence blood, distributing the remaining flesh to the other zombie kings and high-level zombies. This way, he could better secure the loyalty of these high-level zombies in the future. Once they were finished feeding, I took Wenwen back to the base. After returning, I immediately put women to work, since she didn't even question me when I killed a woman today. I had to teach her a lesson and give her a hard time. Otherwise, she'll become even more insolent and disrespectful. But the women hadn't been working for long. Before the roar of motorcycles echoed outside the base, I immediately extended my domain to investigate and found hundreds of people trying to break down the supermarket doors.
In the courtyard, Lin Xingya and the others also heard the noise.
Yet they remained perfectly calm, because they knew my true strength. Everyone who tried to break in before ended up being fed to the zombies. They believed this time would be no different. At that moment, I walked out into the courtyard. I even told Lin Xingya and the others to open the gate, because I wanted Azu to wipe out this mob single-handedly. After all, Azu has recently consumed the blood of over 100 awakeners,
so his strength should have increased significantly.
I don't know exactly what level he has reached, so this is the perfect opportunity to test him. Before long, Lin Xingya and the girls opened the main gate. At that moment, the mob outside the door suddenly froze. They never expected us to open the door ourselves, but they quickly regained their composure with so many of them. They weren't afraid of any tricks we might have. Moreover, they realized there were not only massive supplies here, but also beauties like Lin Xingya and the others. Greed and lust had completely overridden their reason. The bearded leader immediately ordered his men to seize us. However, before they could make a move, Azu charged forward. His entire body was enveloped in arcs of black lightning. I was stunned by the sight. Lightning abilities are common in the apocalypse, but Azu's was pitch black and infused with a trace of deathly aura. The bearded awakener also noticed Azu's uniqueness and immediately unleashed his own power. A massive Yaksha phantom emerged behind him. Raising its harpoon, the Yaksha prepared to strike Azu. But just as the blow was about to land, the Yaksha spotted me standing in the back, its face twisted in terror, and it retreated directly into the bearded man's body. Baffled, the bearded man tried to summon his ability again, but no matter how hard he tried, the Yaksha refused to emerge. Azu gave him no chance and lunged straight at him. Unexpectedly, the people behind the bearded man began unleashing their own abilities. They were all second-tier awakeners. In an instant, a barrage of abilities struck Azu. One of the wood-type awakeners even managed to trap Azu directly. Despite seeing this, I still didn't make a move, because I knew these second-tier awakeners couldn't hold him. Sure enough, Azu broke free from the restraints in no time, unleashing several bolts of black lightning into the crowd. He then lunged straight at the wood-type awakener, and tore into his neck with a bite. In an instant, the awakener was drained dry of his blood. Only then did the bearded man and his crew realize that Azu was actually a zombie. Realizing something was wrong, they immediately prepared to flee.
But as soon as they turned around, they saw that at some point,
countless zombies had already gathered densely outside the main gate.
At that moment, it finally dawned on him. I am the Blood Tribe lineage awakener who has been causing such a stir lately. He finally understood that I am the infamous Blood Tribe lineage awakener. In the next second, he rushed over and fell to his knees before me, slapping his own face repeatedly while begging loudly for mercy, claiming he didn't know this was my territory.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to come even with 100 times the courage.
I ignored his pleas and was about to have Azu finish them off. But then his next sentence changed my mind. He told me that the Monet Corporation was looking for me. He said he was sent by Alton to invite me. I was slightly taken aback by his words. My relationship with Monet is like fire and water right now. Why would they invite me? The bearded man seemed to sense my doubt. He said that Monet's third princess wanted to see me. He offered to lead me to Monad's current base. After hearing that, I decided to spare him for the time being. After all, I've been looking for Monad lately. In my previous life, the Monad Biotech Corporation controlled 80% of Pujiang.
Their power in China was even on par with Dragon Nation Xian.
A major threat like this must be eliminated ahead of time. Now that someone is leading me straight to their headquarters, it saves me a great deal of time. Besides, with my current strength, no one in Pujiang can rival me, so I have no fear of whatever tricks they might play. So, I ordered the bearded man to lead me to Alton. But just as he thought they had all survived,
I ordered Atsu and the other zombie kings to devour the rest of them.
In an instant, a massive horde of zombies swarmed in.
His hundreds of men were quickly devoured.
By now, the bearded man was paralyzed with fear, not daring to harbor any more hidden schemes. He quickly led me to a shelter. The bearded man told me the boss of this shelter is called Toothpick. Wu and the Monad's Alton is here right now discussing a partnership. Then he said he needed to go in and report first before we could enter. But I knew exactly what he was planning. Once he was inside, he'd just make a run for it. It will be nearly impossible for me to catch him again. So I forced him to lead me directly inside. The bearded man seemed to hold quite a high rank here. Despite me holding a gun, no one dared to stop us along the way. Before long, he told me we had reached Alton's office. I ordered him to kick the door wide open. Two people were standing inside, completely stunned by our sudden intrusion. They never expected anyone would have the guts to barge in here. But once they saw it was the bearded man,
one of them, a white-haired guy, started cursing instantly.
He barked that the man must have a death wish to offend Mr. Alton like this. But the bearded man ignored him, instead pointing out the foreigner to me. It's Alton. The foreigner on the sofa also sensed that something was wrong. He immediately reached for his gun to open fire on us, but I gave him no chance, shooting him right through the arm. Alton glared at the bearded man in a fit of rage. The bearded man panicked upon seeing this. He never expected things to escalate to this point so quickly. He didn't dare to offend either side. He hurriedly explained to Alton, stating that I was the heir to the Blood Tribe lineage he was told to bring in. He was just following Alton's orders. Hearing this, the anger on Alton's face instantly vanished, and he began sucking up to me. But I had zero interest in his flattery, stating I only wanted the location of Monad's secret base. Seeing my impatience, Altan, who knew my methods all too well, immediately agreed to take me there. He claimed Monad bore me no ill will, and that the Field family's third princess simply wanted to be friends. I ignored his words, and ordered him to take me to Monad's headquarters at once. Before leaving, I ordered Azu and the others to wipe out this shelter, and then track my scent to follow me. Altan was shell-shocked as we drove out of the shelter. The entire area outside the base was crawling with zombies. On the way to Monad's base, the number of zombies continued to swell. At that moment, he finally understood why I dared to go to Monad alone. We soon arrived at Monad's base, which turned out to be an abandoned chemical plant. If not for my domain, I would have suspected Altan was lying to me. The headquarters of the prestigious Monad Biochemical Company was actually in such a rundown place. Dilapidated as it was, the security was incredibly tight. Fortunately, with Altan as our access pass, we quickly made our way inside the Monad base. But as we stepped into an office building, I was surprised to find a group of people in formal attire waiting to welcome me, led by a stunning foreign woman. Before I could even speak, she began introducing herself. She turned out to be Selena Field, the third princess of the Field family. She was there representing the Field to welcome me, the inheritor of the blood tribe lineage. I was caught off guard by the scene before me. After all, we've always been rivals in a life or death struggle. Yet now they were giving me the luxury VIP treat. Just as I was weighing whether to start a massacre, the third princess welcomed me again and asked how she should address me. Instead of answering, I asked why there had been such a sudden change. Previously, they were hell-bent on capturing me for experiments. Now they were acting so hospitable. Facing my cold glare, the third princess didn't flinch. She told me that the one who wanted me dead was Carrie Monard's head of China operations, but she had already executed all of them. Distrusting her words, I turned and gave Azu an order. Surround the place. Don't let a single soul escape. Azu obeyed immediately and headed out. In the hall, the awakeners behind the princess saw my zombie escort leave, and the look in their eyes instantly shifted. It seemed they thought my power to destroy shelters relied solely on those zombies. To my surprise, the third princess didn't share their arrogance. Instead, she patiently continued her explanation. She admitted she originally came here to capture me, using me as leverage to avoid an arranged marriage with another vampire clan's heir. However, with my current strength, that mission has become an impossible task. Her only way to avoid a lifetime of darkness was to defect from her family. But the Field family is too powerful for her to face alone. As the old Chinese saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And as an awakener of the ancient blood tribe lineage, I have the strengths she needs, which is why she sought a partnership, aiming to take down the Field family together. After hearing her out, I was inclined to believe her. It explains why my entry here was so effortless, and why they greeted me with such grand ceremony. Seeing that she had my trust, the third princess dangled an even greater bait, bargaining chips and promises. She promised to help me become the overlord of Pujiang if I cooperate, but I simply looked at her with a mocking sneer. With my current power, ruling Pujiang is merely a matter of time. They're nothing but meat on my chopping block. What right do they have to negotiate? The third princess's expression soured instantly at my words, but she remained silent, knowing full well that once we turned hostile, there would be no turning back. However, the dozen Monard executives behind her were enraged, hurling insults, accusing me of being ungrateful. Sensing the danger, the third princess immediately barked at her men to stop, but before she could finish, I had already struck. In the next second, the limbs of those who insulted me were snapped, and they were tossed at her feet. The third princess stood there, paralyzed with shock. She finally realized how her men had died before, and why I called them meat on a chopping block. With such terrifying speed, I certainly have the right to say so. The third princess immediately bowed her head and apologized to me, admitting she had failed to discipline her subordinates. She stated their lives were now entirely in my hands, and she would have no complaints. Besides, these men were Carrie's former subordinates, so even if they died, they only had themselves to blame. However, I didn't acknowledge her words, but gave them a choice instead. Either become my slaves or die. Hearing this, the third princess and her people hesitated. They didn't want to be slaves, they only wanted to cooperate with me. But as she hesitated, Azu arrived with the other zombie kings. Azu and the other zombie kings approached and informed me that the entire base was now surrounded, and not a single living soul could escape. Standing nearby, the third princess was utterly shocked by this sight. They never expected my zombies to be able to speak. After all, even her family didn't have zombies like this. Only the legendary zombie kings possessed such ability. Yet, I had more than one such zombie under my command. This prompted her to immediately submit and agree to my terms. Now fully aware of my power, she believed that by clinging to a powerhouse like me, she would no longer fear her family's pursuit. With that, she and her servants bowed respectfully to me, declaring that from now on, everyone in the Huaxia Monad branch would obey my command. I looked at them but remained silent. My decision to take them in wasn't because of their strength, but because I didn't know enough about Field. As a core member, the third princess would know him well, allowing me to deal Field a fatal blow through her. Seeing my silence, the third princess assumed I doubted their loyalty. She immediately ordered her men to bring all of Monad's files to me, but I only flipped through a few pages before putting it aside. Instead, I said to the third princess, "Hand it over." The third princess was stunned by my demand. She had no idea what I was referring to. Seeing her look of confusion, I decided to be blunt, pointing out the silver lamp beneath her. Upon hearing this, the third princess's expression changed instantly. She never expected me to know this secret, as no one knew about it except for her closest servants. But since she had already sworn fealty to me, she dared not hide it. She reluctantly handed over the silver lamp hidden under the sofa. Still, she couldn't help but ask how I found out. However, I didn't bother answering her. I had noticed the silver lamp the moment I walked in. Once I activate my domain, nothing can escape my perception. The third princess had been sitting there as if guarding something. Knowing the lamp was special, I demanded she hand it over. But after examining the lamp for a while without finding anything unusual,
I began questioning her about its origins.
It turned out the lamp was the Field family's ultimate treasure. Inside the lamp resided a hellhound spirit. By sacrificing souls, one could summon it to act, and once it struck, any problem could be solved. Hearing this, I expressed my skepticism.
Then why didn't you have it attack me?
Terrified, the third princess hesitated, fearing I would hold a grudge, but under my fierce gaze she finally told the truth. She had fed it many times, but the hellhound only promised to protect her once. Moreover, it often stayed dormant for long periods beyond her control. Even after his explanation, I remained skeptical. I kept turning the silver lamp over and over, inspecting it closely. Just as I was about to put it down, the lamp in my hand suddenly flared to life. Immediately, the third princess and her servant dropped to their knees in terror. They began to worship it, urging me to kneel and pay homage as well.
To them, the hellhound was a god. Anyone who provoked
it would be devoured, but just as I was starting to doubt its power, a massive shadow loomed over me. Sensing it through my domain, I realized it wasn't a soul at all, but a solid, tangible entity. Though I had no idea how it could change its size like that. While I was still processing this, the ferocious hellhound actually started speaking in a human tongue. It sounded like English, though I couldn't understand a word of it. Clutching the silver lamp, I asked if its name was Aladdin. The third princess stepped forward to translate.
The hellhound says that an ant like me dares to defy a god.
I must address it as Lord Aladdin, or face its wrath. Hearing this, I instantly lost all patience. When I asked if it was Aladdin, it clearly understood. It knows Chinese but chose to flex its English instead. What year is it? Still trying to pull that superiority act.
I glared at it and warned, speak Chinese or I'll beat it out of you.
The hellhound clearly understood my threat.
It let out a fierce, thunderous roar at me.
A crushing wave of pressure surged toward me. The third princess and her party were instantly forced to their knees.
Protected by my domain, I remained completely unfazed.
Instead, I manipulated the flow of time and charged, pummeling the hellhound.
By then, it was already trapped within my domain.
I don't care what gods are here, I am invincible. As I rained down punch after punch, the beast began to shrink. Finally, when it had been beaten down to my height,
it begged for mercy and started speaking to me in Chinese.
Only then did I restore the normal flow of time. The third princess and her people were left utterly speechless. They never imagined I could defeat the very deity they worshipped. At that moment, they felt truly relieved to have chosen my side. I looked down at the hellhound groveling on the floor and mocked. So, you can speak Chinese now? The hellhound looked at me in terror. Its former arrogance was completely gone. It told me that it not only knew Mandarin but various local dialects as well. I made it speak some Henan dialect, and to my surprise, it actually, hearing its authentic Henan accent, I teased, "Are you sure you're not just a Chinese street dog?" But the moment I said that, the hellhound confessed that it really did come from Huaxia. I pressed it further about its origins, but it gestured that there were too many people around, so I dismissed the princess and her group. Then the hellhound began to tell me its story. It had lived for over 1,000 years and indeed emerged from hell. But its power was suppressed, and it could only recover by consuming souls. In Huaxia, entities like it were always hunted and suppressed.
So it had spent its time there constantly in hiding.
By chance, it made its way to Europe 300 years ago, where it encountered the founder of the Field family. After witnessing its power, he worshipped the hellhound as a deity,
begging it to become their family's guardian god, promising a constant supply of souls in exchange.
Hearing this, I was quite surprised by the hellhound's history. I originally thought this was just a hound soul that had slowly cultivated its power, but I didn't expect it to actually hail from hell. Furthermore, it can gradually restore its strength by absorbing souls.
If it ever fully regains its power, it would pose a massive threat to me.
Looking at the silver lamp in my hand, I decided to eliminate this beast. But just as I was about to strike, the hellhound told me that it could bind itself to me through a soul contract, becoming my most loyal servant. With its immense power, it could handle many tasks for me. Hearing this, I felt its proposition made sense. So I asked how the contract could be established. The hellhound told me it was simple. The silver lamp is its essence. By dripping my blood onto it, I could claim the lamp and finalize the contract. I was skeptical. It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. But I followed its instructions nonetheless. To my surprise, it actually worked shortly after. At that moment, all the hellhound's information flooded into my mind. Everything matched what it had said. Now with just a thought, I could instantly kill the hellhound. I was delighted. Today, I hadn't just taken over the Monad company, but had also gained such a powerful hellhound. No force in all of Pujiang can stand in my way now. So I intend to carry out a massive purge of the entire region. I ordered the hellhound to summon the third princess and the others, only to find their eyes filled with overwhelming awe. It turns out that when the hellhound went to get them, they realized the beast had actually submitted to me as its master. You see, within the Field family, even the patriarch had to obey the hellhound. In their hearts, the hellhound was a deity, and now, their god had acknowledged me as master. By now, they had completely submitted to me, without a single shred of defiance left. After summoning the third princess and the others, I issued a direct command. I ordered them to unify every single shelter in Pujiang within 10 days. Any faction that resists is to be eliminated on the spot. The souls of the slain will be fed to the hellhounds. Their flesh and blood will serve as fodder for zombie evolution. Furthermore, every crystal core from mutated creatures must be surrendered to me.
Unauthorized use is strictly forbidden. Any violator will be executed immediately.
Then I summoned Azu and told him to notify the entire zombie horde. Monad has been subdued. Starting today, the siege is lifted.
That's right. The siege on the Monad base is over.
He is to cooperate with the third princess to unify Pujiang and restore order as quickly as possible. Now that I command millions of zombies and a powerhouse like Monad Corporation, I intend to transform Pujiang into a massive bastion for human survivors and re-establish a semblance of law and order. Once the situation stabilizes, we can focus entirely on dealing with the islanders.
With their orders received, they all set out to execute the plan.
However, I had the third princess stay behind. I walked up to her and ripped the buttons right off her clothes. Startled, the third princess jumped back, thinking I was making a move on her. But when she saw clearly what was in my hand, her eyes widened in shock. It turned out that I was holding a hidden bug. I immediately gestured for her to remain silent and crushed the listening device instantly. Then I asked if she could guess who was responsible. The third princess searched her mind for a long time but couldn't figure it out. When I prompted her about who would have access to her clothes, a realization struck her, and she rushed out in a fury. Before long she returned, dragging a maid along with her. Through this maid, the third princess finally uncovered the mastermind, so the third princess took me straight to Monard's core facility. Inside, 2 white men were drinking coffee, but they immediately panicked when they saw the third princess walking in with a gun. The third princess demanded to know why they had installed the bugs. One of them tried to play dumb, claiming he had no idea, but the third princess didn't give him another chance to speak. She blew his head off with a single shot. Terrified, the other men immediately confessed everything. It turned out they had kept a satellite phone to contact their families, but the signal was intercepted by the Field family. They were then blackmailed into spying on the third princess. Hearing this, I furrowed my brow. It seemed the Field family already knew everything about our situation. We had to prepare for the retaliation immediately. I had the third princess finish him off, but just as she did, I detected an intruder in the base. However, the third princess was confused by my warning. She was standing right in front of the surveillance monitors, but they showed absolutely nothing unusual. I told her that an awakener's ability could easily bypass such technology. So, I led the third princess to a corner of the base. Instantly, I expanded my domain and dashed forward, throwing a punch that knocked a winged man out of hiding. The birdman stared at me in terror, demanding to know how I had detected him. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled a gun from my space, demanding to know who he was, and who had sent him to infiltrate. With that, I fired a shot and a scream instantly echoed throughout the base. At that moment, the birdman scrambled to answer my questions. He realized I was a madman. A split-second delay would cost him his life. He was sent by the Field family. He just arrived in Huaxia today and came to scout the situation, but he never expected to be caught the moment he slipped in. Hearing the birdman's words, the third princess was shocked that the Field family had moved so quickly. She quickly pressed him for more information. Did the Field family send the Black Knights as well? However, the birdman's answer made her face turn pale. Not only are the Black Knights here, but even her vampire fiancé from the Cap family has arrived. The 2 families are mobilizing all their forces to conquer Huaxia. Hearing this, I couldn't help but frown. To think these 2 major families would join forces against us. The birdman, thinking I was intimidated, blurted out that in a month, awakeners and assassins from across the globe will descend upon Huaxia. Sanders, leader of the Knights, and the Capet family's heir will also be coming. By then, the third princess and I will be in dire straits. Ignoring the threat in his words, I gave him a mocking look and demanded to know the whereabouts of Sanders and the Capet heir, but the bastard claimed he didn't know either. He only received orders via satellite phone. With that, I fired a single shot and blew his brains out. Then, I ordered the third princess to root out the remaining traitors in the base. But just as I finished speaking, the third princess's servant, Old Zhang, came rushing over to tell me they had just received intel that something massive was about to happen at Pujiang. At his words, a look of grim seriousness appeared in both the third princess's eyes and mine. It seems the crisis is truly upon us. It turns out Azu led Yebing to take down a base today. The base's leader, Gang Ya, was actually from the Rifeng Street base, one of Sato's subordinates. After receiving a special ointment from Sato, he was promoted instantly from a level 1 to a level 4 awakener. Furthermore, this ointment is now being mass-produced. Once consumed, the user falls under Sato's absolute control. Sato has already used this method to control a vast number of awakeners in East China. More importantly, Sato told them they discovered an ancient bronze scroll. It contains ancient Chinese mystical arts. By mastering them, they could conquer China. They even plan to capture the dragon at Mount Feilong, using its blood to breed even more mutated beasts. They've already cultivated numerous monsters using nuclear radiation, and found a way to control sea monsters. The number of mutated beasts in the ocean far exceeds those on land. If these monsters come ashore, combined with the dragon from Mount Feilong, then most of the people in China will become their fodder. Meanwhile, Field is also preparing to launch an attack on China. Hearing this, my expression grew increasingly grim. I immediately ordered him to summon all the zombie kings, including Azu. At that moment, the third princess also asked me anxiously, should we suspend the plan to restore order and temporarily mobilize those awakeners who are disrupting it? But after hearing her words, I refused, telling her those people won't help us. If China faces a catastrophe, they will be the first to surrender and become traitors. That's why it's more vital than ever to wipe them out first, to prevent them from stabbing us in the back later. While I was conferring with the third princess, Azu and the others arrived. I immediately asked Azu how many zombie kings we currently have on our side. By now, Azu had completely transformed, losing all traces of his zombie appearance, looking just like a normal human being. He told me that we now have 22 zombie kings under our command, but I wasn't particularly satisfied with that number. If not for the threat from the island nation, that would indeed be enough. But now, it's clearly insufficient, so I gave Azu a direct order. He must produce 100 zombie kings within 10 days. Seeing Azu sparked a plan. If I want to save Huaxia now, I must rely on zombies, as there are still massive hordes in the island nation and Europe. Using the current 22 zombie kings as a foundation, I can create 22 zombie armies, each 10 million strong. Then, we can counterattack the heart of the island nation and Europe. This strategy of attacking their home to relieve the siege will ensure Huaxia's safety. Afterward, I took Old John and rushed to the airport. I'm going to personally deploy forces to intercept the group field sent to Huaxia. Since Old John had previously flown in with the third princess, he should know exactly how field's men plan to fly into Huaxia. But halfway to the airport, while we were driving, a sudden, massive sound of firecrackers caught my attention. Old John slammed on the brakes, and Azu and the others piled out of the back. At that moment, a strange figure encased in stone was sprinting toward us. It was a strange man covered in rock, running desperately toward us. He was shouting for help as he ran, saying his village had been seized by a group of foreigners who were preparing to carry out a brutal massacre. When he mentioned the foreigners, the Field family immediately came to mind. It just so happens they sent people over. It might very well be them. So I ordered Azu to lead the zombies there first, with orders to capture every foreigner they find. Before long, the Stone Awakener led me to their village. By this time, Azu was already off pursuing the foreigners. Well, the Awakener who brought me here immediately told the villagers that I was the zombie controller who had saved them. Hearing the Stone Awakener's words, the entire village instantly fell to their knees to show their gratitude. However, I wasn't particularly moved by their fervor. Instead, I asked who the village leader was. To establish a new order, I must pass judgment on the wicked, and those who are the first to awaken are often the ones most likely to lose their way. To my surprise, however, there hadn't been a single crime in the entire village. Since the apocalypse began, they have all looked out for one another. After hearing this, I immediately came up with a strategy. Since they have clean records, they can be put to use for my cause. Being near the airport, they're perfectly positioned to monitor everyone coming and going. I immediately ordered a zombie king to dispatch 500,000 zombies to the local leaders, so they could seize total control of the airport. Anyone who arrives is to be captured immediately. Impressed by my strengths and grateful for being saved, they were eager to prove their worth and quickly headed to the airport with a zombie horde. Meanwhile, Azu returned with his unit of zombies, bearing good news. He reported that they had captured over 300 awakeners, though several of the ringleaders had managed to escape. Furthermore, Old John confirmed that all 300 captives were Black Knights of the Field family, each equivalent to a Tier 3 awakener. Interrogation also revealed the location of their base. Moreover, those who escaped were the young masters of the Sanders and Capet families. However, by the time Old John and his men arrived, they had already fled. Still capturing 300 awakeners this time is quite a haul. It means we can cultivate many more zombie kings. So I ordered Azu to feed all these awakeners to the zombies, and had him notify the awakeners in the village to gather at the entrance. The situation is becoming increasingly critical, so I must accelerate the integration of the forces in Pujiang. I plan to have them join the ranks in establishing a new order. I also made arrangements for the ordinary villagers. I'll have Monad Biotech establish a safety zone outside the city. After clearing out all the mutated beasts, they can begin farming. After all, once the new order is established, food will be a major issue. Upon hearing my plan, the villagers were overjoyed. This way, not only would their food be secured, but they wouldn't have to worry about their future safety. They soon left to carry out their respective tasks. As for me, I didn't stay idle. Since the situation is worsening, I need to devise a counter-strategy. While I was deep in thought, the village chief I sent to the airport returned. He reported that they had set up an ambush near the airport as instructed. Early this morning, they encountered a team of awakeners from Japan. With the combined effort of the village chief and the zombie king, they quickly captured that group of Japanese awakeners. After the count, there were over 200 awakeners in total. He came back to ask how I wanted to handle them. I told him to take them to Old Jaw. Interrogate them first to see if any useful intel can be gathered. If they have nothing, feed them all to the zombies. After hearing my orders, the village chief hurried off to find Old John. Before long, Old John entered with a zombie king. He told me that through interrogation they had gathered significant intelligence. Japan has already allied with the Field and Pekka families, and they plan to launch an attack on Huaxia very soon. Furthermore, Sato has discovered a way to control sea monsters, allowing him to drive them to attack us. He has also found a method to control land-based beasts. The 200+ people sent today were dispatched for this very purpose. If they capture the dragon of Mount Feilong, they can use its genes to mass-produce biochemical warriors. These warriors will then be able to command the land beasts. Upon hearing Old John's report, my expression grew grim. I must devise a defensive strategy immediately. Otherwise, when Sato leads his sea monsters to our shores, we will suffer catastrophic losses. I immediately issued orders to Old John. Tell the third princess and Ye Bing that they must unify all shelters in Pujiang within 2 days. Feed all criminal awakeners and commoners to the zombies. Also, the plan to cultivate 100 zombie kings must be accelerated. What was meant to take 10 days must now be completed in 2. Hearing this, old John grew concerned, stating that the task was impossible in just 2 days. I gestured for him not to worry. I'll leave the cultivation of the zombie kings to Azu and the others. There are at least 2,000 awakeners in Pujiang right now. Combined with the mutant beast crystal cores Azu's team collected, creating 100 zombie kings in 2 days will be simple. Hearing my explanation, old John finally breathed a sigh of relief, but I immediately gave him another order to prepare a plane, as I plan to drop Azu and several other zombie kings directly into Japan. Let them take control of the zombies in the island nation, then launch a massive purge from within, wiping out everyone, whether ordinary humans or awakeners. However, before long, a massive ruckus outside the supermarket shattered this rare moment of peace. It was Long Yun, who had left earlier, returning with a large contingent of soldiers. I immediately headed downstairs, opening the gates to let Long Yun and his men into the supermarket. The moment Long Yun saw me, he cut straight to the chase. He was there on orders from his superiors to ask for my help. His request took me slightly by surprise. In my past life, the Huaxia government lost control of the country due to internal and external collusion. Monad had controlled a vast number of awakeners, and then sea beast attacks exhausted the military strength, leading to their ultimate downfall. But now Monad is under my thumb, and Pujiang's threats have been neutralized. Furthermore, the sea beast tide hasn't erupted yet, so the military remains formidable. They shouldn't need my help. Sensing my confusion, Long Yun took the initiative to explain. The Huaxia military had recently detected a surge of monsters in the ocean. These beasts are far more powerful than the ones found inland. Initially, these sea monsters pose little threat to the Dragon Kingdom, but lately, a mysterious force has been driving them toward our coastline. They predict a massive beast tide is imminent. While the military wanted to mobilize to resist the tide, the sheer number of zombies elsewhere has spread their forces too thin. Now they've received intelligence that these zombie kings are all under my command. So he wants me to order the zombies to stop attacking the military and deploy them to fend off the ocean beast tide. Without my help, the military won't stand a chance at holding the coastline. I didn't give Long Yun an immediate answer after hearing him out, but instead fixed him with a cold, calculating gaze. Knowing my temperament, Long Yun quickly added that the government would offer me substantial rewards if I agreed to help. The national grain reserves and cold storage remain intact despite the apocalypse, and they could allocate several of those supply-filled warehouses to me. However, I would have to clear out the zombies there myself. But as the successor of the Blood tribe lineage, that's no challenge for me. Upon hearing his offer, I snapped back in irritation. You think a few warehouses are worth me sacrificing a massive number of zombies? My zombie army would suffer heavy casualties in such a fight. Besides, with my strength, I can take those resources whenever I want. These rewards of yours are nothing but empty promises. Long Yun frowned and asked what I actually wanted. I wanted. The military is short on supplies, so he warned me not to be too greedy. I stared at him coldly and told him I'd help, but on one condition. Once the ocean beast tide is over, I will establish my own laws and purge the various human bases. When that happens, the military must not interfere with me. Long Yun didn't agree immediately after hearing my terms. Instead, he took out a satellite phone to call his superiors.
A moment later, Long Yun ended the call.
A smile appeared on his face, indicating that the military had accepted my demands. Hearing this, I was satisfied. Now, my plans can proceed without any obstacles. I immediately ordered the coastal zombies to assist the military in fending off the sea beast. Then I prepared to take Long Yun inside to catch up. After all, it had been a long time. But as soon as we stepped inside, Ling Qingya rushed in and told me that some of the zombie kings I dispatched had returned, and they had urgent matters to report. I told Ling Qingya to bring them in. Moments later, those zombie kings appeared before me. As I looked at the zombie kings in front of me, I was startled to see they had all evolved. I immediately asked them why they had evolved so quickly. It turned out they were following my orders to form zombie armies in the neighboring provinces. But they encountered numerous sea beasts invading the land along the way. They hunted down many of these mutant beasts, obtaining over 1,000 mutant crystal cores. They used these cores to level up, and most of the high-level zombies under their command had also upgraded to zombie kings using those cores. In a few days, all high-level zombies will likely have evolved. Hearing this, I was genuinely pleased. I needed more combat power, and this sudden surge in zombie kings gave me much more confidence in dealing with the island nation. Then the zombie king added that more and more sea monsters were encroaching further inland, and that many foreign aircraft were landing at various airports. Hearing the zombie king's report, I frowned. It seems the Field family has begun their large-scale entry into China. I ordered the zombie kings to keep a close watch on the airports. Any news was to be reported to me immediately. I also told them to mobilize more zombies to the coast, to prepare for the impending beast tide and cooperate fully with the military. After hearing my words, the Lion Kings prepared to head out, but they looked hesitant and told me that without phones and with the great distance, staying in touch would be difficult. Before I could even speak, Long Yun chimed in first. It turned out he had another mission to deliver satellite phones to me. The military has reactivated a batch of satellites. These satellites ensure stable communication for the next 3 years, and they can be used immediately upon activation. So Long Yun waved to the soldiers outside. Very soon, several soldiers came in carrying many boxes. Long Yun told me there were 2,000 satellite phones here, and they could provide more if needed. Looking at these satellite phones, I was thrilled. This would allow me to gather intel from various regions quickly. I immediately distributed 200 of them to the Lion Kings, and taught them how to use them. Since they now possess high intelligence, they learned in no time. They then left the base with the phones, while I stayed to continue catching up with Long Yun. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a ringing phone and answered immediately. It was Tank, one of my Lion Kings. While they were clearing out bandits, they discovered Sato's whereabouts. Sato has recruited hundreds of Chinese awakeners in East China to execute a secret plan. The exact plan is unclear, but we now know Sato's itinerary. He has gone to a shelter in Haishi called Dulong. The boss of that shelter is a man known as One-Eyed Dragon. Sato told this group that a beast tide has already been triggered. Soon, China's coastal regions will turn into a living hell. Countless people will be devoured by sea beasts. Furthermore, Sato and the Field family are plotting to seize Chinese territory to seize the secret treasures within the Konglun Mountains. After hearing the report from Zombie King Tang, I immediately ordered them to deploy more zombies to the coast and to accelerate the cultivation of more zombie kings. After giving Tang some final instructions, I hung up the phone. I got out of bed immediately, preparing to head out.
But as soon as I went downstairs, I ran into Old John and Erhu.
They had come to give me an urgent report. They've noticed all sea monsters are heading toward Pujiang, speculating that something major is about to happen there, so they came to find me. Hearing this, I immediately realized the gravity of the situation. This beast's tide was definitely orchestrated by Sato, which means there must be something here that he wants. Whatever it is, I have to stop him. I immediately ordered Old John to deploy the Reaper, and the horde of mutants monarch trained to the coastline, and mobilized all awakeners in Pujiang to be on high alert. If any monster sets foot on land, wipe them all out. With tens of millions of zombies already deployed to the coast, along with the military strengths, holding the line should be easy. Meanwhile, I headed to Haishi with Alton to eliminate Sato. After a 3-hour drive, we finally arrived in Haishi. However, I wasn't familiar with the city, so I told Alton to drive into the city center to find someone for directions. But after driving for a long time, we found no human settlements, only roaming packs of zombies. While we were still searching, a roadblock made of sandbags suddenly blocked our path. In an instant, from both sides of the alley, nearly 10,000 zombies swarmed out and surrounded our convoy. Inside the car, I was stunned. I had initially thought humans set this up. I didn't expect them to be zombies. But since these zombies have such high intelligence, there must be a high-level zombie here. As the heir to the Blood tribe lineage, I have a natural suppression over zombies. If I can subdue the Zombie King here, then every zombie in this area will be under my command. Finding One-Eyed Dragon won't be a problem then. So I got out of the car and walked straight into the middle of the horde. However, to my surprise, a massive zombie charged toward me and immediately knelt at my feet. It turned out to be a subordinate of my commander, Lion King Tang, ordered to come and take over the zombies of Haishi. Hearing this, I was instantly delighted. I thought it would take some effort, but it turns out they're on my side. I immediately asked about One-Eyed Dragon's whereabouts. But this Lion King had just arrived and didn't know either. However, he questioned several local high-level zombies and quickly located the One-Eyed base. We headed straight for the One-Eyed base, but by the time we arrived, they were already gone. After interrogating a few left behind to guard the place, I learned that they plan to conquer all the local factions. So today they went to a place called Mingyu's shelter. After feeding the guards to the zombies, we set off again, heading straight for the Mingyu shelter. As soon as we arrived, we saw a young foreign man holding a gun, about to shoot a woman. After Alton took a look, he told me this was Harry, the young master of the Capet family, and the man beside him was Sanders, the Black Knight of Field. I immediately ordered the Lion King beside me to attack. In an instant, the Lion King crashed into the crowd like a cannonball. He immediately began a slaughter. He broke the limbs of anyone holding a gun, and soon, a dozen or so awakeners were instantly incapacitated and lay sprawled on the ground, mistaking the Lion King for a powerful awakener. Harry immediately ordered his men to open fire on him. However, as the bullets rained down on the Lion King, they dealt no damage. Only the sound of crashing metal could be heard. Only then did Harry realize that this figure was actually the Lion King. Harry instantly produced the black scepter and began chanting a dark incantation. The next moment, a ball of blue soulfire erupted from the scepter's crown, instantly morphing into a skull as it lunged toward the Lion King, unhinging its massive jaw to bite down on the Lion King's head. The Lion King mid-combat suddenly froze in his tracks, while a nearby man in a kimono immediately barked out an order. Countless vines surged from the ground, instantly ensnaring the Lion King. Only then did the Lion King snap out of it, struggling wildly. But the vines refused to break no matter what he did. Harry burst into a triumphant laugh, knowing that as long as the Lion King was suppressed, the remaining zombie horde would automatically scatter. Meanwhile, as I raced towards the airport, a tidal wave of sea beasts descended upon the outskirts of Pujiang. A dense wall of zombies blocked their path, and the two sides collided in a chaotic frenzy.
The scene was one of absolute carnage.
Elsewhere, tens of thousands of soldiers unleashed their full fireball,
working with the zombie legion to desperately annihilate the sea beasts. With Nonard's life harvest failing, the mutant beasts and humans he deployed were completely wiped out. Even 50 zombie kings were killed in the fray. Watching through her binoculars, the third princess's expression grew grim as she surveyed the battlefield. She turned to Long Yun and asked when the reinforcements would arrive. Lowering his binoculars, Long Yun noted, Azo and the other 8 zombie kings are still 2 hours away. It will take just as long for the million-strong army and the other 100 zombie kings. Shen Bingqian spoke up. her voice laced with concern. 2 hours is too long. Our current forces won't be able to hold out. If all else fails, we must lure the sea beasts into the mountains. The third princess nodded in agreement. She also wanted to know why the sea beasts were desperately charging toward Feilong Mountain at any cost. But Long Yun stood his ground and refused. He feared they would head straight for Pujiang, where millions of civilians still remain. As they were speaking, a draconic roar echoed from deep within Feilong Mountain. Suddenly, a massive tide of mutant beasts surged out from the mountain, intercepting the sea beasts. The sea beasts' relentless advance was instantly ground to a halt. Long Yun was bewildered. Why would the beasts of Feilong Mountain come to our aid? But just as they stood in shock, a thunderous voice boomed from the depths of the ocean. Today we feast on dragon meat. Once I consume it, I shall evolve into a true dragon. Following that, dozens of other voices echoed from the deep. The third princess looked through her binoculars and saw them, the king dragons, the Mesozoic overlords of the sea. She stared at the 15 massive overlords, each tower-like and dozens of meters tall. Her voice trembled as the 15 Kang dragons reached the coastline. Standing 60 to 70 meters tall, they had grown limbs and could even speak the human tongue. Just as everyone was at a loss, a young girl at the peak of Feilong Mountain transformed into a colossal dragon and soared into the sky. Instantly, dark clouds blotted out the sun. Amidst the thunder, bolts of lightning, as thick as barrels, struck directly at the Kang dragons. At this moment, the women were paralyzed with shock by the scene before them. First, prehistoric Azure dragons appeared, and now even a mythical true dragon has emerged. However, those lightning bolts that seemed so powerful had no effect on the Azure dragons. The 15 Azure dragons immediately launched a simultaneous assault on the giant dragon.
Caught in the epicenter of the sonic attack, the giant dragon
realized things were going south and prepared to flee. But it was too late. With a scream of agony, it plummeted to the ground. The moment it hit the ground, the massive dragon body transformed into a young girl. At that moment, the leading Azure dragon actually spoke in human tongue. They were actually debating how to divide the girl, complaining she was too small a meal. Before long, the lead Azure dragon lunged straight at the girl to bite her. Severely injured, the girl lay on the ground with a look of utter despair. But at this critical moment, a familiar voice rang out. I had driven all the way from Pujiang, followed by over 200 zombie kings, and a massive black dog wreathed in flames. I immediately brandished the black scepter I had taken from the Pika family. One after another, waves of heavenly thunder and earthly fire struck the Azure dragons. I obtained this scepter after killing the young master of the Pika family. Like the hellhound, it originated from China. I bound it to me with a drop of blood. It was now mine to command. The scepter proved incredibly useful, allowing me to summon thunder and fire at will, and even granting me the power of flight. Under my relentless assault, the foot of Mount Feilong turned into a purgatory of fire, incinerating countless sea beasts. The Azure dragons now seemed terrified of the heavenly flames. They tried to retreat back into the ocean in a panic, but I gave them no such chance. I instantly expanded my domain, covering a radius of over 400 meters. Time slows down through my continuous cultivation. After dual cultivation with them, my domain has expanded to 400 meters. Within this range, I am the absolute ruler. I continuously weaved between the massive Azure dragons. Wherever I passed, the monsters collapsed, and I extracted the crystals from their brains. Before long, all 15 Azure dragons were slain. Meanwhile, on the coastline, Princess Long Yun and the others were stunned. They never expected the arrogant Azure dragons to be killed by me in an instant. Once the Azure dragons were dead, the sea monsters fled back into the ocean. Soon, only my people remained on the coastline. I ordered the battlefield cleared, giving all the crystal cores to the low-level zombies, while the high-level souls were all fed to the Hellhound. By now, its strength had mostly recovered, leaving it only one step away from its former peak. Then, the dragon from Feilong Mountain thanked me, and flew back into the depths of the mountains. I then led everyone back to the base. Now all external forces invading Huaxia have been completely eliminated. I need to rest and settle internal affairs. Over the next 2 months, Azu and the Hellhound turned the island nation into a land of zombies. Every living person there was fed to the zombies. The remaining 8 zombie kings also carried out a bloodbath across Europe, successfully wiping out the Field and Pekka families. Meanwhile, a major purge was carried out within Dragon Nation under my command. Anyone who preyed on the innocent or committed crimes was fed to the zombies. Soon, law and order were restored across Dragon Nation. The people returned to a stable life once more. As for me, holding the ancient map I scavenged from Sato, I brought the women and the Hellhound to Kunlun. At this moment, the secret realm was filled with the fragrance of flowers and the song of birds, shrouded in mist like a hidden paradise. Everyone was stunned by the sight before them, but after I searched the area for a long time, I found neither secret treasures nor any signs of cultivators. Eventually, we discovered a stone stele with inscriptions that resembled oracle bone script, but none of us could recognize the characters. Just as we were at our wits' end, the Hellhound walked over and said it recognized these as ancient pictographs. The general meaning was that a group of enlightened cultivators, having guarded the ancestral land for tens of thousands of years, were now departing for another world. This was a farewell letter. As for where they went, or what the ancestral land was, the stone did not say. After hearing the Hellhound's words, some secrets of the Kunlun secret realm were finally revealed. Despite the lingering doubts, it proved that cultivators did indeed exist, and only when one's strength reaches a certain level can they journey to another world just like those cultivators did. We then proceeded to search the area one last time. Finding no treasures, I led everyone back to Pujiang. From then on, I lived a carefree life together with the girls. Through dual cultivation with them, my strength improved by leaps and bounds, until I finally became a supreme global powerhouse.